Rumble. We are now live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. We are going out live across Twitter. We are taking the gospel to all the world. Okay, you're probably wondering, 40, what the hell does Lionel Nation have to say about this, Nick Fuentes meeting, having dinner with Donald Trump and Kanye West? What does Lionel Nation have to say?
And right now, the happiest guy in the world, the happiest guy is Nick Fuentes. He says, I can't believe this. I'm it. I am it today. Everybody, New York Times, Breitbart. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not even sure I don't even know what I stand for. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And this, to show you how this thing works, you will see the Fox News right quibble and argue as to who's really. There's no solidarity of message. And they're going to lose again. There was a time in this country when it was a time of Rush Limbaugh, maybe it was a time of Ronald Reagan. You didn't have this. Oh, you might have had somebody. You want Reagan, you want Bush, whatever. But not this. Today, social media have completely destroyed the right, the conservatives.
Okay, blessings. Welcome. Lionel Nation, he has this way of speaking. He has this tremendous presence. He has this pacing, this rhetorical firepower, this fluency with words, this ease of dramatic presentation. The shame is that the stake isn't really there. But when you listen to Lionel Nation, and I don't very often, but you do feel like he's about to impart tremendous insights. And so it's kind of a shame that there's absolutely no connection between the beauty of someone's presentation, the resonance of their voice, the sweep of their rhetorical vision, all right, and having anything useful or profound or wise or good to say. So rhetorical fluency, rhetorical agility, rhetorical drama, right? No necessary connection with merit. Because when you listen to Lionel, I mean, come on, am I just making this up? You feel like he's about to impart, life-changing truths.
The Republicans. There's no solidarity. All they want to do, and they want you, the voter, to confuse whether you like Ben Shapiro versus whoever. That's what you think politics is. Let me give you an example. One time.
No, people are interested in people. And people who need people are the luckiest people in the world. Right? Being amused, entertained, and interested in this Nick Fuentes dinner with Donald Trump does not make you a bad person, does not make you a shallow person, does not make you a weak person. It does not make you a lesser person than someone who is not interested. Right? There's this widespread notion among middle class and above people that talking about people is somehow inferior to talking about ideas. No, frequently people are more important than ideas, right? You're not a more elevated person if you just talk about ideas and you don't talk about people. Right? Someone who doesn't care about people, someone who's not interested in people, someone who's not interested in gossip is not human, right? And I know that we want assurance from someone who separates himself from the rest of humanity by not being interested in gossip, by engaging in intermittent fasting, by engaging in these, great rhetorical flights, by engaging in tremendous, physical activity or spiritual activity or moral activity or intellectual accomplishment. We think, oh, if only the person who's going to give us the scoop, if only he can just sizably distinguish himself from other beings, then I know that the guru, the shaman, the rabbi, the preacher, the YouTuber, he's going to be able to give me assurance. But no one can give you assurance. All right, someone giving you assurance, that's cheap grace, and so that that beautiful way of speaking, and that elevated pitch that, oh, we should transcend concern with petty individuals. We should just dwell in the lofty realm of ideas, and people who are interested in people are somehow less than people who are not interested in people but only consumed by the power of ideas. Well, frequently people are more important than ideas. Frequently ideas are best understood through individual examples. This is a terribly amusing, interesting, entertaining, and mildly to moderately important story of Nick Fuentes, a guest on my show. This bloke having dinner with Donald Trump. It tells you something about all these guys. What do they have in common? Kanye West, Nick Fuentes, Milo Yiannopoulos, Donald Trump, right? They are all very compelling personalities, right? And we live in an attention economy. If you're able to compel people's attention, right, you'll have a lot more success than people who aren't able to compel attention. So I think Trump enjoys the attention, even though this is largely negative attention. And Kanye and Nick and Milo Yiannopoulos all enjoy the attention. Right? These are people who have fashioned themselves to be as interesting and attention-seeking and attention-getting as possible. And I know something about that because I have some of those traits in myself. I remember when I moved to the United States in 1977, all these people started describing me as insecure. And in Australia at the time, we didn't use that psychological language, but people immediately picked up that I was an attention seeker, that I was insecure, seeking attention. Now, in Australia, I think there are more therapists per capita than there are in the United States. Like, we're all about mental health now in Australia. There's like abundant mental health counseling, much of it paid for by the government. If something awful happens, like fair dinkum Aussie grief counselors like rush to the scene, even though all evidence shows that grief counseling does more harm than good, because you're re-traumatizing the victims by saying, oh, tell me about what happened. How did it make you feel when you saw that gunman slaughter 17 people in front of your eyes? How did that make you feel? Are you concerned? Are you scared? Tell me more about your feelings, right? That tends to re-traumatize people. So we have all these professions that are very good at securing attention, status, money, but doing things that are harmful to society. So it's not just social media that's harmful to society, right? Many doctors are carrying out unnecessary medical procedures because they make money from them, such as a lot of hysterectomies, oophorectomies, right, do far more harm than good. A lot of back surgeries, neck surgeries do far more harm than good. Almost all chiropractic is best useless, if not a scam. We've got a whole, foreign policy elite who gets their sense of status and importance from intervening overseas, even though America's excessive intervention overseas does the country more harm than good. But people in the foreign policy profession, they get to feel important by directing American intervention overseas, even though that hurts America. So doctors, lawyers, probably accountants, like psychiatrists, right? Psychiatrists constantly want to expand the definition of mental illness so that they can have more power, status, prestige. They can get more media attention. They can make more money. If they can diagnose more and more of normal human sadness and normal human struggles as a mental illness that they can prescribe pills for, they can make money. Pharmaceutical company can make money. So we've got all these professions, all these individuals pursuing their self-interest at the price of the public good. So here I am, your public servant, your humble servant, willing to point out when people are pursuing things that are self-aggrandizing for them, that are very exciting for them, but are pretty much against the public good.
We had a lunch not too long ago with some political types. These were people who fancy themselves as Republicans. I won't go too much into detail.
Thanks.
And if they see this, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. And the first thing they did was they said, well, we have to make abortion. I said, are you out of your mind? These are Republicans. You're going to bring up abortion? Nobody's talking about abortion right now. What's the matter with you? You want to bring up abortion? You're going to lose. America does not want to ban abortion. I don't know where you got that from, but it doesn't. That's number one. You're crazy. America is at best center right, but center. You're out of your mind. So as we are talking, I said, what are some of your, this was during the course of this, give me an idea of some of your political antecedents? Would it be Reagan? Would it be Reaganomics? Would it be more of a Moynihan even? Are you more of a Nixonian in terms of foreign policy, realpolitik? Maybe Kissinger, maybe whatever. Oh no, you know what they said? I like Pete Hog's breath or whatever his name is. I swear to God, this was somebody who confused a Fox presenter with political ideology. I swear to God. Oh, you're wonderful. What? I had another one too. I'm thinking to myself, oh.
So one thing I've noticed over here in Australia is you don't encounter women who've had abortions and they're just absolutely tormented by guilt. So how come women in Australia, women in the United Kingdom, women in France, Germany, Europe, right, Asia, how come they have abortions without very much guilt, but thousands of American women are absolutely racked by guilt over their abortions and they feel like they're murderers? Because in America, the abortion issue has been moralized, right? Once an issue has become moralized, good versus evil, it's hard to arrive at a sensible compromise solution because you can't compromise with evil. And so in America, there's all this rhetoric about abortion is murder. And I don't deny that abortion is killing, and I'm fine with calling abortion murder. But you have so much rhetoric, you have so much political capital put into convincing people that abortion is murder, that people who operate on a low level, they take this rhetoric seriously. Now, Christianity and Judaism are not particularly fixated with abortion, right? Neither of them are pro-abortion, but it is not the cutting edge primary issue for either the Jewish tradition or the Christian tradition that it is for much of the Christian right in America. So most people don't understand that the abortion issue is not about abortion. It's a way of uniting every possible Republican voter who's likely to form part of a winning coalition. So abortion is murder, and we need to fight for the right for life and protect millions of unborn children and stop the madness, stop the murder. This is all a very canny political strategy that was devised by Republican strategists in the late 1970s to try to bring Catholic voters on board with the Republican Party, evangelical Christians, traditionalists who looked askance at the new degenerate, more sexually adventurous society, people who are kind of looking askance at Black culture, at modern secular liberal humanist culture, right? Here was an issue that people could rally around, but this is a rhetorical strategy and a political strategy and a cultural strategy, but it's not about the thing in itself. It's not really about abortion. It's about uniting people to vote Republican. But people who operate on a low level, they think that people mean what they say and say what they mean, and the fight over abortion is really about abortion. But it's not. It's simply a strategy designed by Republicans in the late 1970s to try to bring various Christians and various traditionalists together on the same team. And there's just no precedent in the Jewish and Christian tradition for making abortion this number one issue of saving millions of lives that it's turned into the United States. So you operate at the low level, you go, oh my God, people say what they mean what they say, but people almost never say what they mean. People almost never mean what they say. You have to start operating on different levels, and almost all these questions go back to a different understanding of the self, whether we have a porous self where what you do affects me, what goes on in my neighbor's house affects me, that there are essentially forces that are destructive, and there are forces of holiness in the world, and you try to steer a path of safety away from contagion and disorder, right? That's the traditionalist view of life versus the modern secular liberal notion that we're basically good, we're basically rational, that we're strategic, autonomous, buffered selves, so that if I have a trans couple next door who've been married under the blessings of the state, that there's absolutely nothing about that needs to affect me, right? That's the secular, modern, liberal, left-wing position on the self, and almost all political, cultural issues can be reduced to which perspective you take on the self. So Richard Spencer was talking about Kanye, Nick, and Trump.
Idaho, which is this really nice place, actually. Here, you probably haven't heard of Coeur d'Alene, but it's actually really, they have really nice little stores and restaurants, and this beautiful lake and big hotel and things like that. It's just very cool. But anyway, before we went that, my mother actually met us there, but I drove the kids down. We went to this, there's this, I guess it's like an Indian reservation that they've developed. And so there's this like indoor water park. And yeah, the kids love that, but it's a bit, 4 hours, that's more than enough time. But
Has the political process become too trivialized to be redeemed? No. And I think part of the trick is finding the profound in the trivial. Like, what is it about the trivial that is captivating people's attention? There's plenty to be learned there. So I don't like the perspective, people are just stupid, irrational, dumb, and just dismiss whatever it is they're interested in. It's often worthy to take a good look at what people are interested in, what's captivating attention. Abortion is a proxy for the sacralized worldview. Yes, abortion is a proxified, because let's face it, tens of millions of Americans don't like Black people very much, or are concerned about Black people, somewhat fearful of Black people. Most of these people vote Republican. Abortion is an issue that unites these people and brings them into a coalition against the ever more sexually adventurous, promiscuous, degenerate world filled with sexually transmitted diseases and all sorts of wild experimentation and non-traditional family types. And abortion is a good proxy for organizing people who don't like that. All right, let's get a little Richard Spencer
Coeur d'Alene
here.
is very nice, but they just love the water park. I mean, first off, the midterms weren't the worst thing in the world for Republicans. I mean, they could say, oh, well, we took back the House or whatever, but they also spent $250 million on the Senate, and they're going to be in a worse position. They certainly didn't take it. And anyway, the whole victory in the House is viewed as lackluster, and all the Trump candidates, or many of the Trump candidates, lost. And certainly the kind of hardcore type election denier people definitely lost. And so there's this kind of weird, ambivalent feeling in the air of, what do we do? Should we just get rid of Trump and go mainstream? I think that's actually quite delusional for them to do that, because ultimately the GOP is very unpopular, and it actually is Trump's craziness that kind of gives it a reason for being and makes it popular, and kind of you can't take your eyes off it. But I also just sense something deeper happening. And, this Kanye Fuentes stuff fascinates me. I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory about it.
So Elliot Blatt notes that I just could not imagine, the Trump, Kanye, Nick Fuentes circus when I was growing up under Reagan. Yeah. So this is the reality show president. But I remember Rob Long either said something or wrote something. He was a writer, producer on Cheers. And I heard him say about 20 years ago that he may have even said this to me when I interviewed him, that American elections for president, you are casting for who you want to see play the lead role in America's reality show for the next 4 years. And so Trump would not have been as successful as he was in 2016, winning the presidency of the United States, if he wasn't a compelling reality show figure. I think a lot of people just would prefer to see Donald Trump in that starring role rather than Hillary Clinton. Now, if Joe Biden had run in 2016, I think he would have beaten Donald Trump in 2016. It's not that people like Biden, but there's much less hatred for Joe Biden than there is for Hillary Clinton. So sometimes the reality show just becomes too bizarre and too intense. And even though on the one hand, this Donald Trump meeting Nick Fuentes and Kanye West for dinner seems absolutely unbelievable, when you reflect on the character of these men, it does make sense. They all have in common this giant attention seeking, this giant void within that propels them to ever escalating series of extreme attention seeking behaviors. So it's not surprising when attention seekers team up together to create even more attention. But there are just so many bizarre angles to this story, including Milo Yiannopoulos in a Richard Spencer haircut. I mean, that was weird.
And I'm going to relay that. But it's not a conspiracy theory in the sense of like you can ever invent anything out of whole cloth. Like there is something happening. And take this for instance. Again, I have not been doing deep research on this. I have been kind of on vacation, seeing stuff that comes across my Twitter feed, etc. But that's kind of how most people take in politics. And I do sense something. I mean, the Colorado Springs shooting, obviously, terrible event. One of these, one of these lone wolf types. I mean, I think we're going to find out more about him, and the fact that his dad is like, I don't know, quasi endorsing it, basically excusing it and saying, well, at least he's not gay or something, and also showing all of these weird facial tics of someone who is really mentally ill. I think we're going to find a lot. We're probably going to find out a lot, like we found out about the Buffalo shooter, this kind of kid who has real issues, family problems, and he's kind of driven to something. I mean, I think it's hard to believe that this was a random shooting. I mean, granted, the Pulse nightclub event, which also was a gay bar, was apparently not animated by any kind of anti-homosexual animus or traditional Islam or something. I mean, I guess it was Islamic on some extent, but it was not actually directed towards gays. That of course might happen again, but it just seems.
Let's have a look at Kanye West's Twitter. He says, as much as Ben Shapiro and I disagree, I pray he joins me in saving our country. Now what they say, love your enema. Spelling is not my core competency when I'm sleepy. If Nick keeps tweeting from my account, the only platform I'll have left is Truth Social. Daily Wire tries to own Kanye by admitting they sell all their subscriber data to whoever will pay for it. And he says, Ben Shapiro accepts $100,000 from one of my opponents, then tries to trash me. But here's the video.
That was like lower on the list of things that caught him off guard. It was the fact that I walked in with intelligence. So Trump is. I think the thing that Trump was most perturbed about, me asking him to be my vice president, I think that was like lower on the list of things that caught him off guard. It was the fact that I walked in with intelligence. So Trump is really impressed with Nick.
That's Milo, right? That's Milo, right? It looks like Richard Spencer. But it's Milo.
I walked in with intelligence. So Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the lawyers and so many people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist. When he didn't know what the lawyers is, you'll still have your lawyer list. And when all the lawyers said, forget it, Trump's done, there were loyalists running up in the White House, right? And my question would be, why, when you had the chance, did you not free the January 6ers? And I came to him as someone who loves Trump, and I said, go and get Corey back. Go and get these people that the media tried to cancel and told you to step away from. He basically gives me this.
Yeah, Trump actually has a very professional political organization right now. And Kanye wants him to hire all these losers.
Would-be mob-esque kind of story. Talking to some kid from the south side of Chicago trying to sound mobby or whatever. He goes into the story about all that he went through to get Alice Johnson out of jail and how he didn't do it for Kim, but he did it for me. But then he goes on to say that Kim is a you could tell her I said that. And I was thinking, like, that's the mother of my children. Since we know, and all the Christians in America that love Trump know that Trump is a conservative, we're going to demand that you hold all policies directly to the Bible. When Trump started basically screaming at me at the table, telling me I was going to lose, I mean, has that ever worked for anyone in history?
You're going to lose. Tell him he's going to lose.
I'm like, well, hold on, Trump. You're talking to Ye.
Yeah. Hold on, Donald Trump. You're talking to Ye. Yeah, he didn't realize he was talking to Ye.
This tendency to lash out and to kind of go more extreme. So you kind of expect them, or some people, the media expects it will just an odd thing to say. These people were, on another level, it did. I and a lot of other people just got, wrath of God vibes from statements like that. I mean, these people were just gunned down in their gay club in Colorado.
Okay, talking about Janet Ellis talking about the people who gunned down, whether or not they were saved in Christ at this LGBTQ
springs. And next thing you know, she's talking about, how they're going to be in hell. It's just an odd thing to say. And it does remind me a bit of the Westboro Baptist Church line of, God hates fags. And so that's why he killed these gay soldiers, which was actually why they had this lawsuit that actually went to the Supreme Court. They were protesting outside of funerals for gay soldiers, and they're basically saying that, God killed your sons because he hates homosexuality. I mean, again, I can understand why a Christian can actually believe this, but it just, it reeks of wrath of God stuff. It is pretty extreme. And I do kind of sense this, I sense something of like, they're feeling like things are out of control for them and they're losing power, they're being demoralized, and there's this tendency to lash out and to kind of go more extreme. So you kind of expect them, or some people, the media expects them to, oh, they're going to moderate, they're going to drop the Trump stuff, whatever. Well, they might very well drop all the Trump stuff, but what they're going to go to is stuff like this. And so I think there's a kind of like general background for this happening. But I think there's also some interest, there might very well be some machinations going on. So when I was at this, the day before Thanksgiving, just kind of relaxing by the pool, I saw this viral video of Fuentes going to a Florida airport and apparently going to, being alongside Kanye and going to meet Donald Trump. Now, Kanye had a pretty interesting video that was put out that I believe was made by Milo Yiannopoulos. And there, you can see a little glimpse of an ideology there. Kanye is basically saying, we're going to judge every policy against the Bible. So it is, full on fundamentalism or Christian nationalism or theocracy or whatever. Now, this is rather odd, obviously coming from a rap artist formerly married to Kim Kardashian, but it is what it is. I actually do, as I've said many times, I think Kanye actually sincerely believes in what he's doing. And Fuentes was involved. And so this is a kind of...
Okay, whether or not you have a coherent ideology, so Spencer is praising Kanye West for having something of an ideology, that doesn't really matter. You can have reactions, all right? We all evolved to have reactions to danger and to things that are likely to enhance our life. And if you just have these instinctive reactions and they're not thought through ideological concepts, all right, they can frequently be more accurate than the philosophical, thought through, systematic, theological approach to life. So it doesn't really matter for this type of news story whether or not Kanye has a coherent political philosophy, and it also doesn't matter if he's sincere. Whether or not someone's sincere, that almost never has any importance. People don't say what they mean; they don't mean what they say. Sincerity isn't anything, right? There are very few situations in life where sincerity is vital.
I mean, I think it's a triumph for him in a way. And actually, when I saw it, I couldn't help myself but tweet out, like, look, I think this is headed for a disaster. And obviously this is not.
Wow, you think something involving Kanye West is headed for disaster, or Milo Yiannopoulos is headed for disaster? Of course. Nick Fuentes, Donald Trump, we're talking about quixotic, unstable personalities, right? These guys have a lot in common. Like Donald Trump is unstable as a nuclear reaction. You never know when this guy is going to go off. Now, deeper question is, do Kanye, Nick, Richard, Milo believe in anything greater than themselves? Right? So I talk a lot about hero systems, right? Most people get their sense of transcendence from their community, right? They're part of a community that they valorize and believe will go on past them. And so by attaching to their community, their society, their nation, their tribe, they are part of something eternal. But some people, they are their own heroes, right? The people who are creating rap music, right? They are their own heroes. People who are creating YouTube live streams, such as myself, we are our own heroes. And so is there anything that these guys believe in that's greater than themselves? So for me, I believe in my Judaism. I believe in God. I believe in ethical monotheism. I believe in the 12 steps as an excellent route to recovery from otherwise crippling addictions. So these are some of the things that I believe in that transcend myself, that are greater than my desires, that are greater than my wanting to be seen and acknowledged, greater than my ego, greater than my comfort. All right, those are some of the things that I believe in. I'm not sure if Kanye, Nick, Milo, Richard Spencer, I'm not sure if they believe in anything beyond their own egos.
Not
you
what
think?
I want. Yeah. But look, I'm nothing if not fair. And I try to be. I actually try to.
I'm nothing if Richard is frequently good on these live streams and podcasts because he frequently does try to be fair. He makes an above average effort in this area.
It's hard sometimes, but I try to put away biases and say, like, don't just denounce Kanye or whatever, but say, like, does he sincerely believe this? And is there a kind of coherency to what he's saying? And I would say yes to both of those questions. I think everyone deserves a kind of fair shake. And anyway, so he's with Kanye. There's some kind of dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Now, Trump has since claimed, in a very typical fashion, actually, like, I had no idea who this guy was. I don't know who he is. Blah, blah, blah. But he did that for tons of people. He famously did that with David Duke, even though.
So I've interviewed thousands of people in my life, and it's one of the most common put downs. Like, who is this person? Right? That's just a reflex that the people say to dismiss other people. So there's another reflex. Oh, he's obsessed. That's one of the most common put downs I notice. Or I don't even know who this person is. Or you put them down because they don't have many Twitter followers or they don't have many viewers. So there are all these easy at-hand dismissals of other people to try to get out of grappling with whatever the situation, challenge, problem, provocation is that you want to dismiss. And one of the more common dismissals is, oh, he's irrelevant, right? If you even need to use the breath to state that someone's irrelevant, just like Lion or Nation here, the cosmic irrelevance of Nick Fuentes, right? If you even need to use the breath to say someone's irrelevant, obviously they're not irrelevant, because we don't talk about people who are irrelevant. We don't gossip about people who are way below us in social status. We don't bother to expend the energy to dismiss the relevance of people who plainly are not relevant, right? So claiming that someone's irrelevant is one of these cheap cop-out ways of dismissing people so that you don't have to grapple with whatever challenge it is that they are presenting to you. It's cheap, it's sleazy, it shows that you're not willing to think too deeply. So he's irrelevant. Who is he? I've never heard of him. Right. Oh, he's just obsessed, right? So you're dogged, you're purposeful, you're committed, but anyone else with these traits, he's obsessed, possibly a stalker, deranged, so you don't have to grapple with whatever it is they say.
Very much knew who David Duke was. He actually got into battles with David Duke in the Reform Party in the year 2000 or thereabouts. And obviously David Duke is much more of a household name than Nick Fuentes is much more of a household name than myself. He knows who David Duke is. Now, I think in the case of Fuentes, he might very well not be lying. I do think that Trump has a TV understanding of popular culture. And so he obviously watches Fox a lot. Who knows what kind of garbage he consumes. But I think he has a kind of mainstream TV understanding of the world and popular culture. So I actually think it's believable, at least, that he actually didn't know who Fuentes is. But that almost kind of begs questions or raises more questions than it answers. So it's very clear from this video that Kanye put out that Milo is instigating this. And the other thing that I noticed, I hate to say it, call me a self-centered narcissist if you must, but Milo was basically dressed almost in a cosplay version of me in 2016.
That's absolutely true. I don't know how Richard could be expected to ignore that. It is incredibly weird that Milo Yiannopoulos is dressing like a 2016 Richard Spencer.
And so Milo was more famous for being a kind of flamboyant homosexual with dyed blonde hair. He now has dark hair, brown hair. Maybe it's his natural color, I don't know. And he's wearing a gray suit. So look, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but with Milo, everything's a kind of crafted personality. And so I do think that he was trying to kind of imitate me or evoke me. And I think that also kind of goes along with a much kind of like broader thing where all of these people are kind of like endlessly trying to recreate 2016. Because 2016, for better and for worse, was this moment when it felt like something could change. And the establishment, particularly the Republican establishment, was just on its heels. All these people who previously didn't have influence were shoved into the spotlight. The game changed, the language changed. It was crazy. There, as I've talked about, there's just this kind of Dionysian feeling about being.
Okay, 2016 was pretty awesome. Let's check out Godwin.
I don't know why I did the things I do. I don't know why I say the things I say. That's like an African cut deep inside. Words are like weapons, they wound sometimes.
Godwin, Masochist exposed.
I say that without any irony. Nick Fuentes is going all the way to the fucking top. I kneel, Fuentes Sama. You have won, sir. You have won. There's no gonna be any Kino Casino cope on this one. When we see a winner and a victor in action, we give them the clap. Bravo, Nick Fuentes. President, at some point in the future. Maybe not 2024, but definitely at some point in the fucking
Wait, where's this? Why is he playing all this music?
future. Nick Fuentes is going to be president of America Land. Why is he sounding so sincere and convinced of Nick Fuentes becoming a future American president? We'll cover that. We'll cover all of that. And then we're going to go into the exact reason why the Kino Casino didn't stream last night on what was arguably the biggest night in Nick Fuentes news ever. Literally ever. It's a bit beyond, eating a French fry gay. Oh, look, he's looking at...
So it's often sad, what's the right word, disturbing Nick Fuentes' life. Like when you learn about Nick Fuentes' life, that he's always talking Christian nationalism, talking about Christ as king, but he's not someone who ever goes to church. He doesn't date, but somehow this guy's focus keeps him incredibly productive and incredibly in the center of attention, just absolutely compelling attention. So often the type of success that Nick Fuentes has accumulated comes at the price of a private life. Now, you'd hope that he would have room for friends, have room for a woman in his life, have room for religious community, have room for pursuits outside of the internet. But his monomaniacal approach appears to be paying off.
Staying sort of back. This is way up there. This is top of the news agenda. Of all-time greatest Nick Fuentes crazy moments to cover on a Kino Casino show. Surely. This song has a special relevance later. Okay, so, few days ago now, but the news is still as fresh and as exciting as it's going to be, even delivered now. Nick Fuentes, leader of the American race, was spotted in an airport alongside Kanye West. Kanye West had been invited to Mar-a-Lago, Trump's estate. He was invited for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. All eyes were on Kanye West, so it was almost perfect that Fuentes was spotted in shot, carrying the luggage, but still in shot, still a known entity. That was great PR. And who was the person that was in charge of that PR stunt? Who was the Machiavellian mind behind it, wielding his little vault there? It was the person that's running Kanye West's campaign. That person is Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo's back, and bizarrely, more powerful than ever. Milo Yiannopoulos, the man who made Game Again. The man who, essentially, if we really think about it, is 100% responsible for getting Donald Trump elected as president in 2016. Milo Yiannopoulos is now the puppet master for Kanye West's presidential campaign. What? Is what I hear you ask, because Milo's supposed to be irrelevant, dead and buried. He had to skulk into the shadows when he was defending paedophilia, and how all people should be like victims of paedophilia or something he was saying. It was total fucking insanity. And he said it on the Drunken Peasants, which is even more of an insane nub to this storyline. But there was a time when Milo was really at the fucking height of things. He was going on like Bill Maher. He was on every sort of mainstream news platform shilling for Trump. And now, he's managed to claw himself away from that irrelevancy. So if you don't know, you should know. We'll show you sort of the level that Milo was at. When Milo was like, really in the gutter. That's if it's still up. So Milo basically ran onto YouTube, tried to reinvent himself, do some stuff on his channel, and Milo was pretending to be that doctor who accused the Judge Kavanaugh, of a rape back in the 80s. What was the bitch's name? Dr. Christie? Okay. This is what we wanted to show you. This was sort of what Milo was doing with his time after he'd fallen so completely from relevancy.
Hi. Thank you, senators.
That's what Milo was doing.
I don't drink, just a sec. I don't know who that is.
This was a serious, apparently, political operator back in 2016, but he'd fallen from such relevance that he was doing shit like this, right?
You might know me from lying to the Senate. You might be wondering why a woman of my age has such a squeaky voice with this high intonation and vocal fry. But that nice young man from Cory Booker's office said it makes me seem really cute.
Ha ha ha, my aching sides!
As you all know, I have been the victim of disgusting and hideous violations that have ruined my life.
So that's what Milo was doing, right? But there was a game changer in Milo's irrelevancy, his wilderness period. And that game changer was an interview with Nick Fuentes. We'll just show you a brief fucking glimpse of that. That's if it's still on YouTube. And it's been taken off. But basically, Milo interviewed Nick Fuentes. And at the time, all of the American Firsters were like, what the fuck? It's Milo Yiannopoulos, like, prolific, profound homosexual, degenerate man who's defended paedophilia, been cancelled completely. So, because of the worst thing that you could possibly be cancelled for, right? But Nick Fuentes told everyone to trust the plan. He said that Milo Yiannopoulos was working on the website, the America First website, and he was basically pulling the strings. He was the puppet master behind, like, America First's online infrastructure. And we just had to trust the plan, folks. Trust the plan. And in the meantime, there have been various people who haven't trusted the fucking plan. Various people who've made their name not trusting that plan. People like PPP, Warski, COG, and various other people that A-log America First and Nick Fuentes. Trust the plan. The constant refrain that was given out for years. Trust the plan. And here we are in the space year 2022. And that plan has finally come to light. Now we can see exactly where the plan's going. And all of those A-logs, the Jaden McJudases of the world, have to cry into their pillow of a night time because they no longer have Fuentes' love. They're no longer going to be on Cozy TV with Kanye West and Vice President Donald Trump. We're going to go with this one, I think.
This flashlight can burn through anything. This new military flashlight is basically a lightsaber that fits in your mind. But be warned, this 600-pound flashlight is not a toy. It's so powerful that it can melt.
This is an advert, by the way. It's trying to advertise a lightsaber to me.
The flashlight projects an incredibly powerful beam of light reaching up to 3 kilometers. It was designed specifically for British Special Forces to view enemy positions.
Why would I need this?
Close combat missions and enemy territory at night. The flashlight features stable.
Tonight we are getting a new window into former President.
So I wanted to show you what this is called. Trump posted, we'll turn off the captions, for some reason the captions have auto-loaded. Trump hosted Holocaust denier along with Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago. This is the CNN take. And it kind of covers the timeline of events and really gives the take. The CNN take is here. Now, many people wouldn't lead with the fact that Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier. Many people would say that's a mere footnote in his thing, but regardless of who was alongside Kanye West, they'd be treated like this, make no doubt about it. If it was Destiny, if it was Sargon, if it was Ethan Ralph, if it was Andy Warski, if it was Jim, if it was Nick Risotto, if it was any of them, they'd have this exact same headline, okay? So
Okay, let's get the MSNBC perspective here on what happened. Mar-a-Lago
Just
meeting.
11 days after announcing his third bid for the White House, former President Donald Trump is under fire for having dinner with a well-known white supremacist and Holocaust denier, Nick Fuentes, at Mar-a-Lago. In a statement, the former president said Fuentes was merely a guest of rapper Ye, or Kanye West, who was also at the dinner. Trump concluded the statement saying, quote, "I didn't know Nick Fuentes." Now, he did not denounce the anti-Semitic and racist screeds on which Fuentes has built his entire platform. And frankly, I shouldn't surprise you. We saw the same pattern when Trump wouldn't initially condemn former Klan leader David Duke. He did it after Charlottesville with his "there were fine people on both sides" comments. And he did it when he told the Proud Boys not to stand down, but to stand back and stand by. So here to discuss is my political panel. Tolu Olanirepa is the White House bureau chief at The Washington Post. Chuck Rocha is a Democratic strategist and host of the Latino Vote podcast. And Rena Shaw is a Republican strategist and founder of Relax Strategies. All right, folks. Tolu, I'm going to start with you because Fuentes is a known white supremacist that before this meeting, this dinner, if you will, many people didn't even know his name. Now we are sitting here talking about him. Not just us, many outlets have talked about him. So what do news organizations need to be vigilant of when it comes to these extremist figures, especially going into this 2024 cycle?
That's a great question. It's incredibly important for reporters, journalists generally, to call out people like Nick Fuentes for what they are, not beat around the bush, not mention words that don't specifically identify him as white supremacist, as someone who has.
Wait. They have to identify him for what they are. What he is, there's no essential quality, right? This is a guy who'd be up in arms if someone tried to make the argument that there are essential qualities to blacks or there are essential qualities to homosexuals. But he's just says, oh, it's absolutely essential that the media describe the essential qualities of Nick Fuentes. Well, Nick Fuentes doesn't have any essential qualities. In certain contexts, he's a bit edgy here, he's a bit anti-Jewish there, he's a bit anti-black there, he's a bit pro-white here. Different situations, Nick Fuentes, like the rest of us, is different. So a journalist who'd be appalled at anyone who ascribed essential qualities to blacks thinks it's absolutely essential the news media ascribes essential qualities to Nick Fuentes.
In this kind of extremist behavior. And so it is important for us to focus on that and make sure that we're using the right language. Now, it is also important for us to not dwell and not elevate people like that who have meetings with Donald Trump because they want to be in the news, because they want to be elevated.
Nick Fuentes has spoken for tens of thousands of hours online. Denying the Holocaust is not a defining part of Nick Fuentes. To the best of my knowledge, it's only a tiny fringe thing that he did in the form of a joke. So to say, oh, it's absolutely essential that we call him a Holocaust denier, to the best of my knowledge, is absurd. It's not a primary thing that Nick Fuentes talks about. I'm not sure it should be defining for Nick Fuentes. Why do you want to put these subjective labels on people? Right? Everybody in different contexts has negative feelings about different groups and has clashes of interests with different groups. It's not unique to Nick Fuentes.
Because they want to be in the national conversation. And so it's important for us to call out what happened and then move on and talk about the importance of what it means for a former president to have dinner with a white supremacist and not condemn his views and not remove himself as opposed to associating himself with such views. And so it's important for us to write about what this means for where we are in this country's history, that such a person who not only was the president, could be running for president again, or is running for president again and could be the president again. It's important for us to write about it and talk about it in ways that are responsible.
Spoken like a White House bureau chief, y'all.
Responsible to whom? To their advertisers, to their peers, to the American people? Right? The American people really need journalists to let them know who the bad guys are. What about just reporting the news?
Look, I agree with Tolu, and I think he's right on the money. But Rena, let me just say this. Donald Trump was having dinner with Kanye West, who brought Nick Fuentes. And I think it's important to note that just a couple of weeks ago, Kanye West was blasted for his anti-Semitic comments. And if it was anybody else who was having dinner with Kanye West this week, we would be talking about the fact that this person had dinner with Kanye West. We'd be asking if they denounce anti-Semitism. We would be...
What, so you're not supposed to have dinner with anyone who said anything that is regarded as objectionable? That we're supposed to define people on the basis of some comments they make on social media?
Asking, if they stand with Kanye, and we would not be talking about the white supremacist plus one.
So I've got a few thoughts on this. Number one, where are the gatekeepers? There are none, it seems, anymore. Also, where did our standards go? Again, there are none anymore. So this demands a public conversation that's not just robust, it is one that should call to the carpet the people that are most guilty of doing the most obscene things. And Nick Fuentes is one of those people.
Yeah, we need gatekeepers because you are not smart enough to make your own decisions, right? They need to make these decisions for you so that you shouldn't see Nick Fuentes, you shouldn't hear Nick Fuentes, right? You should only have this amount of room for discussion of controversial issues. You should not get to hear from anyone outside the Overton window. And this woman, she feels qualified to gatekeep and her peers feel qualified to gatekeep to protect you from unauthorized opinions. Oi, mate, you got a license for that opinion, eh?
The Holocaust denier. In my generation, your generation, Simone, we know this. This was just.
To whatever extent he's quote unquote denied the Holocaust, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny aspect of what he does. He's a comic, right? He's an entertainer. Like the Holocaust is not a primary focus of Nick Fuentes.
Baked into history class. We know that the Holocaust is real. So I'm one of those people who's never been part of the journalistic corps. But I will say this, I genuinely believe in this country, justice comes along with great journalism. And if we didn't have Twitter to expose the fact that Kanye and Nick Fuentes can waltz right into Mar-a-Lago and say whatever they want to say and do whatever they want to do, we would have no accountability. It is.
So she's not content just with reporting. She has to do journalism, which provides context and lets you know who the good guys and the bad guys are. She doesn't just do journalism. Right? She also wants to carry out justice.
Up to Republican leaders, again, to denounce the very underbelly of the party. But will they rise to the occasion? Likely not. So I think it, again, demands us, the public, to do our part and push back, have corporations push back too.
But I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying. And I get the last point I'm gonna say on this, and Chuck, if you could quickly respond, but I've heard nothing about the anti-Semitism. I think it is terrible that a white supremacist was able to sit down and have dinner with a former president. But I just.
Guess what? There have been a lot of anti-Semites who've had dinner with a president or a former president. And not everyone is out there with their anti-Semitism. But of course, people are going to have negative feelings about Jews or any other powerful group. People are going to have negative feelings about any group that often seems to have interests that are clashing with their own interests, their own group's interests, right? People with anti-Gentile attitudes are eating with the president and the former president. Did you know that there are some Jews who, in some situations, have anti-Gentile fears and anxieties? So for every proportionally non-Jew who has fears, concerns, and negative feelings about Jews, you'll find Jews with negative feelings about Gentiles, right? Would we call out a president for having dinner with someone who exhibited anti-Gentilism?
I just went through before I introduced this segment, par for the course for Donald Trump. I think we have to call it all out at the same time. And I think
it is par for the course for Donald Trump. I mean, it is like only Donald Trump, I think, would do this.
It's not necessarily Nick's fault.
Highly controversial figures. Just days after he announced his 2024 run for the White House. Let's bring in CNN national reporter Maeve Reston. Maeve, we have...
Maeve's got the scoop. Maeve has the scoop.
Trump hosting rapper Kanye West, or Ye, at Mar-a-Lago.
See, I thought it was Ye, because you say Kanye West. Kanye West. But it's Ye or Ye. Ye.
Down in Florida, as well as an outspoken Holocaust denier.
I will have nothing said about Maeve. Maeve is not a slatternly woman. Maeve would pay for the Toby Carvery in a heart.
He's not an outspoken Holocaust denier, to the best of my knowledge. That's a fairly minimal part of his thing. That's
You then explain what happened, but you do so with an economy, just as in the Milo playbook. You do so with an economy, and this is, I mean, you have to admire Milo's ability to run a campaign and run noise and run interference and, I don't know, be a meme and propel people into that meme magic. And this is obviously a Milo original. Yeezy HQ, Los Angeles, California, Mar-a-Lago debrief.
Trump was most perturbed about the.
We'll play this in full speed, then we'll slow it down, because every frame of this is wild.
I think the thing that Trump was most perturbed about, me asking him to be my vice president, I think that was like lower on the list of things that caught him off guard. It was the fact that I walked in with intelligence. So Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the...
Yeah, so Kanye thinks that Donald Trump is upset that Kanye, walked in there with intelligence. He just wasn't expecting that from a black man.
There's so many people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist. When he didn't know what a loyalist is, you'll still have your loyalist.
Okay. Now we're going to slow that down. We're going to unpack everything that was in that 31 seconds, because it's over in a blink of an eye, but there's so much in there that no one has fucking covered. And you'd think the top A-logs of Nick Fuentes in the sector would have done the show last night, unpacking this for 6 hours, interspersed with super chats, retarded clapping. Alas, someone has to do their job for them. But better, of course, because nobody does it better. So, let's play this so incredibly slowly that we're able to unpack every single frame. Are you with me? Okay. All aboard! Let's go. Let's fucking go. So do you see how these are being typed? like it's an episode of The X-Files. This is almost in the exact same format as they do the locations for episodes of The X-Files. You're supposed to be thinking, this can't be real. You're supposed to be thinking, do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Milo's a master at making you doubt reality. But then, when crazy things happen within his construct of reality, then you just go with it and you believe in the meme magic. So do you see how this starts at the ceiling and we go down? Because we've gone from stargazing and wondering what the plan is to trust, we've gone from watching the skies, and now we're having it all revealed to us. This pan reveals it to us. And what's being revealed to us is Kanye West on his phone, right? Probably being filmed somewhat surreptitiously. And Milo Yiannopoulos on camera attempting to brief Kanye West, who's on his phone. Milo Yiannopoulos now looks like he's merged with Richard Spencer. In fact, it looks like Richard Spencer and Catboy Kanye have fucked and produced Milo Yiannopoulos.
Me asking him.
So apparently Nick Fuentes has ended his daily live shows. He's now working for Milo Yiannopoulos as a... Is he working on Kanye West's presidential campaign? After he's done working for Milo, only then will he return to his daily shows? Wow.
Should be my vice.
The whole video is there as an attempt to paint Kanye as very, very close to Donald Trump. They have a connection. Kanye West, because of that connection, is an authority on Trump and Trump's mind. Are you with me?
President, I think that...
Yet again, another picture. This is at Trump Tower this time. A different context, but again, you can see how close they are. So therefore, Kanye West must be some sort of insight into the mind of Donald Trump, and probably next president.
Was like lower on the list.
Milo Yiannopoulos. He's reinvented his look, and God knows why he thought that this was an appropriate attire to go in, but he's trusting the plan. Perhaps the plan involves him doing a fusion dance with Catboy Kanye and Richard Spencer. A three-way. But that's Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo Yiannopoulos, the only reason he's actually in this video, and all he's doing is sort of giggling and holding a clipboard and waving his hands while Kanye West is on his phone, but the reason why he's looking official and doing this is purely so he can say that he is running the campaign, Kanye West for president. Milo is a master at knowing how to place himself, to generate memes. He doesn't have to speak, he doesn't have to talk, he just has to be there, be present, looking like a Fed, holding the paperwork, and bizarrely looking like this. For many people, Milo has looked like, well, he's looked very strange. He's been like Roger the Alien, but this is definitely his most outrageous of disguises.
Some things that caught him.
Now, obviously, Kanye West doesn't look Milo in the eyes. I don't even think that Kanye West is aware he's being filmed. But you've got Milo indulging him, laughing, literally being a fawning sycophant in order to get Kanye West to say these things. You understand where we're going?
It was the fact that I walked in.
So again, we're showing the clip of Fuentes, Kanye West together. So the connections are being made. Milo, Kanye. Kanye, Trump. Trump, Fuentes.
With intelligence. So Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes.
Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. Now, do you see how it's edited here? This is Milo's editing, and I have to give credit where it's due. It's masterful. When Kanye says Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes, that could be a statement that applies to anything. Maybe he liked, Fuentes' polite manners at the dinner table. Instead, to drive the point home without saying it, Milo has edited this image of Nick Fuentes with a megaphone and a rally to highlight, to infer, to heavily imply that Trump was impressed with what Fuentes was saying. And that's the mastery of Milo's edit here. It's to paint that Trump was impressed with Nick Fuentes' viewpoints and what he was saying.
And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the lawyers and so many people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist.
Nick Fuentes is a loyalist. Okay? So that's where we are currently. Now, if you hate Nick Fuentes and America First, and you've been trying to spin coats out of what's been going on, I think it's incredibly difficult to deny the reality of things. Because even if you hate Fuentes and say that Trump didn't know who the fuck he was and all of this stuff, you can't deny that he's literally being endorsed by Kanye West. Kanye West, who literally has an ability to dine privately with Donald Trump and discuss matters not just relating to politics, but his own life. You can't deny that Nick Fuentes is, at this point, 2 steps away from Donald Trump. That's the truth. That's 100% the facts. But if you've been A-logging him and saying that he'll never be anything, he'll never amount to nothing, he's just sniffing cum from bed sheets. He's a loser. He's a homosexual. He eats a French fry gay. He's a scrawny dweeb. If that's the angle you've been taking, and you've not really, truly, properly been aware of where Fuentes has been going over the past year, and you've just been attacking his superficiality, right? Then the Kanye West Trump revelations, blow all of that apart. They blow it all to smithereens. And there's a reason why you didn't get a Kino Casino last night, folks. Because they were crying into their pillows. They were faulted. I've been having a very good night. Fuentes is supposed to be completely irrelevant. He's supposed to be a child in a basement with zero political power or influence. That's what you're supposed to think. But because they haven't A-logged him and attacked him on the political points that he's been saying forever, because they wanted to keep it fucking dumb and retarded as fuck so Wolski could clap along and read super chats, when a moment of superficial victory is the one we've seen just occurs, then they have no methods of defense. There's no holding the line. There's not even a battle, right? I want to show you some copes, some absolute copes that we saw from the people that were, you know, the Meto sisters, the casino hoes. You know, so this was a cope that was given. Oh, look, he's bombing Nick Fuentes, okay? But again, it's superficial. It's not necessarily like, yeah, Fuentes is with Ye, but he just met Trump, but did you know that Nick Fuentes is a Mexican catboy, Jew lover, Christ cuck, tranny porn, might be gay? Did you know, folks? Did you know? Sometimes you have to literally just take the hat off and tip it across enemy lines. Sometimes you have to recognize when there's a victory. You know, oh, but Kanye West is a false prophet. Look at him here. You know, beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing. Look, they've circled Masonic symbols and Kanye West is evil. But there's no denying the victory we can see before us. Fuentes and Kanye West are best of friends now. To the point where Fuentes, last night, had to retire. He's basically down tools on his own show because he's destined for greater things. Because he's going to be running the communications for Kanye West's presidential campaign. Fuentes has decided that there's a greater power for which to serve. And if you're a casino sister and you've been weeping into your super chats there, or whatever the fuck they do, if you're really that fucking deluded, then you've been like, oh, I just want to show you this, 1 second. So, the announcement from Baked Alaska, Yay 24. Nick Fuentes is indefinitely suspending his show after 6 years whilst he moves full-time into political operations for Kanye West in his bid for the presidency. If you've been saying that Nick Fuentes is literally a child in his basement that has zero hope or chance of being anywhere near the White House or anywhere near serious political influence or power, then that just there blows it all out of the fucking water.
Oh yeah, going to work for Kanye West's presidential campaign, that really shows you're one savvy political operator.
Your whole argument, every show that you've strung out for 6 or 7 hours every week, is blown out of the fucking water. You are completely fucking decimated by Baked Alaska, no less. Nick says that the show is not over and not cancelled. You know, he's literally just taking a step back to run this fucking campaign alongside Milo Yiannopoulos. And I genuinely do think that they're going to get Kanye a few 100,000 votes. I genuinely do think that this is going to be a springboard and great political experience for Nick Fuentes in how to run.
Yeah, count me skeptical. Like running communications for Kanye West presidential campaign is not exactly
good to see you both, David. I want to start with you. Talk to me. I mean, this is not the first time that Donald Trump has fraternized someone with the likes of Fuentes, and
we've all fraternized with disreputable characters.
Yet it can absolutely never become normalized.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Alicia, I think everybody can make their own.
Can never become normalized. Do you know anyone well? Right, if you know anyone well, they're just filled with socially unacceptable aspects to their personality. Right? Everyone holds, negative views of outgroups. Everyone has engaged in shameful behavior. People, when they have their guard down, they say all sorts of things that are not politically correct. The news media here is just insisting that anyone in public life, particularly in political life, that they must be, cleaner, than Caesar's wife, and it's absurd.
Own judgment about Donald Trump, the man, and what's in his heart. But what we do know is there's a pattern of giving aid and comfort to racist, to anti-Semitic individuals, to bigots, and that's true at Mar-a-Lago just this week. I think, look, we're overlooking the fact that he also had dinner with Kanye coming out of the last 4 to 6 weeks. This has not been a good moment for Kanye's personal convictions either. So for Donald Trump to plead ignorance just simply doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There is a pattern of this that was affirmed. The bigger question, does it matter for Republicans? I think the side.
Wow, all the mainstream commentary on this is so shallow, it's so boring, it's so limited, it's just in this tiny little box, it's right within the Overton window, it's just adding nothing. Right? Is there a single perspective here you haven't heard 10,000 times?
Silence is fairly interesting. Look, you've got a whole bunch of Republicans hoping that this is the end of Donald Trump, but they're not willing.
That's absurd that a dinner with Nick Fuentes would prove to be the end of Donald Trump. Absolutely absurd.
To be the ones to place their bet on that. So if Donald Trump emerges in the Republican primary as the front runner, expect them all to get right back behind him like they did 4 years ago.
Juanita, your thought on this guest list?
Look, it's no surprise. Trump ran on white supremacy and anti-Semitism and bigotry in 2016 and 2020.
What is she talking about? Trump ran on anti-Semitism and bigotry and white supremacy in 2016. What planet does she live on? Okay, I can't take it. Let's see if CNN is any better. CNN.
Welcome back to State of the Union. Former President Trump is attempting to defend a meal he shared this week with rapper Kanye West, who now goes by.
If you find it very troubling that Donald Trump had a meal with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, then your life is empty. It is bereft of meaning and purpose. Aren't there 100,000 more important things in the world to be troubled by? And why would you be troubled about things over which you have no control? You have no control, zero control over who Donald Trump has dinner with. Like I strive to minimize how troubled I feel over things about which I have no control.
By Ye and white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. Trump insisted Friday that he had
white nationalist, Holocaust denier, just easy put downs, not sure that they're accurate here.
Previously known Fuentes, but a source tells CNN he found the white supremacist, quote, very interesting, particularly Fuentes' ability to rattle off statistics and data and his familiarity.
And that source being Milo Yiannopoulos.
With Trump world. Here with me now is Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson, who is considering challenging Donald Trump for the 2024 GOP nomination. Governor, thank you so much for joining me. I know as U.S. Attorney in Arkansas, you personally prosecuted white supremacist groups. What's your reaction to seeing a former U.S. president associate with someone like that?
Well, I hope someday we won't have to be responding to what former President Trump has said or done. In this instance, it's important.
So should people be driven out of public life if they associate with Black Lives Matter, racists, terrorists, an organization largely responsible for thousands of extra murders in the United States and massive dislocation to the lives of millions of people, right? Now, Black Lives Matter activists, I think, are 10,000 times more worthy of condemnation than, no, that's an exaggeration. They are 100 times more worthy of condemnation than Nick Fuentes.
Important to respond. And as you mentioned, the last time I met with a white supremacist, it was in an armed standoff. I had a bulletproof vest on. We arrested them, prosecuted them, sent them to prison. And so.
Okay. I really tried to get the mainstream media perspective on this, but it's too boring. Let's get back to Rich's.
Being online in 2016, where tweets were going viral and liberals were crying, and it just felt like even doing social media kind of had an impact. I mean, I often feel now, I mean, I'll kind of put out my thoughts, or I'll use Twitter as like a rough draft for something that I'm thinking through. But you know, it doesn't. I don't really go on Twitter for years now and feel like we're fighting the meme war. You know, it's just, at least for me, it does not have that feeling at all, nor probably.
Yeah, it doesn't have that feeling because you lost. You were humiliated. You proved to be unpopular, you proved to be a very poor leader of the movement, and the movement overwhelmingly turned against you. It's not that you just had this great, philosophical, moral, spiritual awakening, and you decided to transform from being a rabble rouser, and now you're choosing to live life on a higher plane. You're driven out of your previous position, Richard. It's not that you just simply evolved on your own.
Sure. All of that stuff was an illusion. But I do think that there are people who are trying to revive this, and they've got their hands on this billionaire. And what's interesting about Kanye is, when the controversy first struck a month ago.
Crazy. Isn't it crazy that people would try to revive something that worked? Isn't it crazy that people would try to revive something that was compelling and entertaining and fun and resulted in a Trump victory? Why would people want to revive something that won and was fun and was funny and was compelling and millions of people enjoyed? Gee, why would people want to revive that as opposed to something that was dour and sucked and resulted in a loss? Gee, I just don't know why people would want to revive procedures, tactics, policies that work. Gee, why would people want to go back to the well for something that works when they could do something that's been proven to fail time and time again and is boring and sucks and is icky? Gee, I wonder why people would want to recapture something that is fun and exciting.
There was he was working hand in glove with Candace Owens, and they went to Paris Fashion Week together and, donned White Lives Matter.
Candace Owens may be the bravest person in American public life. I mean, she says some goofy things, but overall, the level of bravery that she displays in the most important issue in America today, which is crime, and the small subset that is committing the overwhelming numbers of those crimes. And Candace Owens does more than any pundit of which I'm aware to point out the responsibility for America's massive crime problem. The good that she does, the bravery that she shows, in my mind, far outweighs the goofy things that she does.
Her t-shirts or whatever in Helvetica typeface, black shirt with white letters in the reverse, and etc. And she was actually, from what I can tell, behind Kanye's rise in 2018 when he started making noise, and the next thing you know, he was in the White House. Now, Kim Kardashian also got invitations to the White House too, for prison reform or something. But Kanye was there to engage in philosophy reform, I guess, just his, unending, illogical, semi-coherent, mostly incoherent ramblings about religion and being.
Gee, just imagine that. A rapper tends to be incoherent and rambles and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Gosh, this must be the first rapper who lacks a coherent political ideology. I'm shocked.
I guess. So this has happened before. Candace has instigated it. There's clearly a connection between Candace Owens. He purchased Parler. Am I right to say that went through? I think it did. But anyway, he was at least talking about purchasing Parler. I think he has. I don't know how much that's worth. And he certainly, even with all his deals falling through, he certainly still has the cash to do that. But, Parler is owned and operated by Candace Owens' husband. So there's a lot. I mean, just to call all of this self-serving is an understatement. It is. He's got,
as opposed to the rest of public life, right? As opposed to what's going on here on CNN. That's
so. No, I don't think it's a good idea
These
for
a
leader that's setting an example for the country or the party to meet.
I see two very self-serving people talking there. What about here? Is this self-serving?
I frankly feel like people need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Did we just forget about the anti-Semitism, Chuck?
You're exactly right. And the point you're making is the most important part.
Right, you're exactly right. They're all patting each other on the back. They all seem pretty self-serving to me. I don't see how what Donald Trump is doing is just so incredibly self-serving, as opposed to what? As opposed to what I'm doing right now is self-serving to a large degree, right? We all are self-serving 95% of the time, right? Normal person is self-serving 95% of the time. We call someone who's self-serving 99% of the time, 98% of the time or more, call that person selfish. We call someone who's self-serving 92% of the time, we call them altruistic and unselfish, right? 95% is about the normal. So being self-serving is frequently the healthy, normal way to go.
I think Kanye is genuine. I obviously, the kind of weird Christian anti-Semitism plus we are the Jews because we're the blood of Christ and blah. Needless to say, this is not.
My father preached that for decades, right? My father, evangelical Christian, 2 PhDs, right? One from the University of Manchester, one from Michigan State University, right? My father preached for decades that evangelical Christians are the true Jews, that the Jews who call themselves the Jews today, they're the fake Jews, right? My father preached this for many decades, right? This is not something unique to Kanye. Tens of millions of Christians believe this.
Not my cup of tea, and I find it pretty dumb, to be frank. And I actually don't think it's like ultimately productive. I mean, who knows, but whatever. It's not my cup of tea. But I do think Kanye, to be fair to Kanye, I do feel like he is genuine. I think he is a good faith actor. Now,
people aren't genuine or good faith actors versus not genuine bad faith actors. We're all good faith actors in some parts of our life, and we dissemble in other parts of our life. None of us are always honest, always brave, always true, always good, right? We all have parts of our lives that are upstanding, where we're good faith actors, where we're genuine, right? Where we come from the heart. And then we have other parts of our lives where we simply treat people on a transactional basis. There are like these good guys and then bad guys. There are good faith actors and bad faith actors. There are genuine people and fake people, right? There are people who in different situations turned out to be honest or dishonest, to be good or bad, but you can't essentialize people, right? This is the same thing that the news media does, that Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier. That is only one tiny aspect of what he does. It's not a main focus of what he does. It's no way to essentialize Nick Fuentes and to describe Kanye West as a good faith actor. Kanye West is frequently a bad faith actor. Kanye West is, frequently an obnoxious, out of control, irresponsible, antisocial lout. And then there may be, some things that he does where he's a good faith actor. But Richard Spencer, the news media, they can't help essentializing people as, oh, these are the good people, these are the genuine people, these are the truth tellers. When in fact, we're all genuine, good, and truth tellers in some areas of our life, and we're all fake, dissembling, dishonest, slippery characters in other areas of our life. We all tend to have areas of our life where we shine, where we're brave, other areas of our life where we're ashamed and dark and deceitful, right? No man is always righteous, always truthful, always in good faith.
Candace, look, she might believe what she says to some degree. She's a grifter, and she's just gonna do her thing. And she sees a billionaire.
Candace is a grifter. Candace is incredibly brave, right? How is Candace Owens a grifter and Richard Spencer is not, right? All grifter means is, here's another put down that I'm going to throw at someone because I'm too lazy to articulate why I really despise them or disagree with them, right? It's another cheap put down, like saying they're obsessed or saying that they don't matter or I don't know who they are. These are all just cheap put downs that people use when they're too lazy to think through and articulate an idea. Right? Grifter simply means they're making money that I believe truly belongs to me. How dare they fundraise more effectively than I do? Oy vey, I'm going to call them a grifter.
Who's getting kicked off social media, and she suggests that he purchase the social media company of her husband. I mean, I can't imagine something more grifty than that. Now,
doesn't strike me as grifting at all. It just strikes me as common sense, right? It's a grift when a wife seeks to arrange a lucrative deal for her husband or convinces someone to do something that is going to help out her spouse. It strikes me as reasonable, healthy, even noble.
Milo has re-entered the scene. Now, I think a lot of us thought that Milo was really over. I mean, he became a kind of poster boy for Gamergate, first off. And then he became a poster boy for the alt-right for a while, and I think was ultimately pushed aside in favor of myself. I think to be honest here, I think he has a long-term grudge about this. And then when these...
As opposed to Richard Spencer, who doesn't have grudges against anyone. Right? Richard Spencer really has a good thing to say about any other public commentator, any other activist on the right. Okay, so it's just kind of weird hearing Richard call out Milo for having a grudge against him.
His tapes reemerged of him talking with Joe Rogan, where he was, in effect, excusing pedophilia, and really pedophilia of the worst kind.
Oh my God. So So what was Milo on Joe Rogan? He doesn't treat pedophilia as the most evil thing in all of history, and it's like the one thing that you can't make fun of, right? There's supposed to be just like one attitude that we can have to pedophilia, and that's just it.
Hello, freak bitches.
Believe what's on salon.com. Look, so it's impossible to believe those things in good faith because you have to lie to make that. You have to lie so much to yourself and to others in order to make those arguments. That it is one long practical joke, that site. It is just a gigantic piece of satire. I'm convinced it's funded by the Koch brothers to discredit liberalism. I'm convinced.
Really?
I'm absolutely convinced. If you trace the Salon money back far enough, you will discover the surname Koch, because it is the only explanation for how badly Salon discredits progressivism. It is the only explanation. Just today, they published another editorial from this fucking paedophile, who I wrote about, and he wouldn't even dare bring my name up because he's too scared to get into it with me because he knows he'd lose. He published this thing about how, I'm a paedophile, but I don't act on it. Right after I'd exposed a paedophile, Sarah Nyberg, in Gamergate, right, and it went all over the world, and it was this huge story that I broke.
Hold on.
Then I'm going to start at the beginning. I exposed this.
You exposed a pedophile.
I exposed this pedophile. She was backed up, and all the social justice warriors doubled down and protected her because she was, on message, basically. She had the right politics, so they stuck her for a kiddie fiddler. This is the state of the modern left. Directly after that, with coincidental timing, Salon publishes this thing by a pedophile saying, "Oh, I'm a pedophile, but I don't act on it," which is precisely the defense that this person had used. So I respond, and I did a very good piece, and I urge all of your listeners to seek it out because it really is excellent journalism. It was called something like "This is why the left, this is why progressives stick up for pedophiles." Explains why pedophiles can get away with this stuff and why progressives and liberals back them.
You think people back pedophiles?
Yes, they do.
Who backs pedophiles?
Well, they make excuses for them. As Salon just did today. Today, they gave a space to this guy who is a paedophile about whom there is horrific stuff online, which hasn't come out yet, which, you should watch this space for that, because I know Stephen Crowder knows about some of it, and so do I. Excuse me.
This guy who wrote this article, did he give his real
wrote
name?
A second, under his own name. This is how brazen they are. Wrote a second piece for Salon today, playing the victim, saying that he came out as a paedophile and he's been subjected to right-wing hate.
So
that
he says
this is the right-wing machine in action. He's saying,
this
I'm
is the guy that only has one hand.
I'm a
correct?
paedophile, and I think so. I'm a paedophile, and I don't act on it. And I did this piece, and everyone came out and said that it was really supportive and it was really great, and that I'd help people to get through their own experiences, and everyone was really sympathetic, except the right-wing hate machine, meaning me, although he didn't dare mention me by name.
You are the right-wing hate machine?
Well, apparently, according to him. Except the right-wing hate machine had the temerity to say, we think paedophilia is wrong. And why is Salon giving a platform to this guy when there's so much dirt on the internet suggesting that he has physically touched young girls, for example? And I'm going to publish...
There is?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, well, that's a completely different argument, right?
Yes. Well, this is the thing. Salon gave it.
No, there's no evidence that Milo is a pedo.
Platform to this guy, and Salon ought to have known about this allegation. If you're going to make space on your platform for a self-confessed pedophile, and you will only find this on the left.
Okay, so this is Milo Yiannopoulos from the Joe Rogan Experience, episode 702, took place February 21, 2017.
This is what I mean by the left sticking up for pedophiles. They make excuses for them. They try to legitimize them. They try to habilitate this as an unfortunate sexual orientation, rather than these people being dangerous predators that we need to be protected from.
But I've never seen that. But you're saying this. All I've seen is this one article where this guy is discussing this. But no, honestly, all bullshit aside, psychologists and sociologists and neuroscientists have tried to figure out what it is that causes someone to have these desires.
Yes, but we know from the transgender debate, the left doesn't care about that. What it cares about is who it can, where it can place people in the oppression Olympics, in the victim hierarchy. And I'm warning you now.
That is the worry that people have.
I'm warning you now. Pedophiles are going to be the next. Transgender's been won now. They've won that battle. It's over.
Do you think so?
Yes,
honestly,
absolutely. It's done and dusted. We lost.
Well, don't you think
we lost? By we, I mean people who actually wanted to find out what the science said. What I objected to is simply telling people lies. lies. Born This Way is a lie. And, because
but isn't it a true story with some of them?
Well, nobody that's holding the signs, because most of the ones holding the signs, the militant homosexuals, are the ones that chose to be gay to get at people.
Now, do gays disagree with you? Do you have debates with gay people about this? Or is this...
Well, most gays won't debate me because they know they'll lose. Because they've got woman brains. They're not very good at logic.
They've got woman brains.
I'm just kidding. You accused me of trolling earlier, so I thought I better live up. I thought I better live up to the reputation.
You certainly do, and you're also very aware that your right-wing views and the right-wing views, you kind of a little bit of a right-wing bend to you. You talk about conservatives and you wear a suit and tie. This right-wing thing, though, like a good way to align yourself in the club is you have to espouse Christian values or talk about being Christian.
I don't give a stuff about what the conservative establishment thinks of me. If I did, my career would have turned out very differently. I would have chosen a very different path through my professional life. I was at the Telegraph, the most respectable establishment newspaper in England 8 years ago. If I'd wanted to be, a scion of the conservative Republican establishment, I could have done that. I did the exact opposite. I've stuck my nose up and my middle finger up at conservatives at every available opportunity. Poor Breitbart, who put up with so much from me. They publish black dick jokes every week from me, and that is a direct assault on the kind of stomach churn that the conservative right is always said to have about gay things. Right? I don't just tell them I'm gay. I tell them I'm sucking black dick. Right?
But you write some really good columns.
I do, and they're very funny and entertaining, and I'm right about everything.
And it also puts them in a very interesting place where they can say, look, we have a gay guy working for us.
I don't think Breitbart gives a stuff about whether people think they're homophobic or not. They certainly wouldn't hire me for tokenism.
Certainly do.
No, of course
everybody does.
Trust me.
Okay.
Breitbart doesn't care. Breitbart doesn't care if you think they're homophobic. They're not, but they don't care if you do.
Right.
What they care about is the facts of what they publish, and the facts of what they publish.
But this whole picture that we're painting here is so strange. Is someone who believes but doesn't practice. You believe in religion, but you don't practice any of the things that religion espouses, especially the sexual stuff.
I wouldn't say any of the things.
Well, the Catholic Church bought out the book. You can buy it now, but it's like now it got republished a few years ago by this guy named Jan Irvin, and so you can get a hold of it now. You got the right guy to molest.
It wasn't molestation.
That's absolutely molestation.
It wasn't molestation. It was perfectly consensual.
I don't think it is when they're 14.
When I was 14, trust me, I was the predator. I was the predator.
You were the predator. You were chasing after the priest.
The instigator.
He was trying to stay close to God.
I was chasing everybody. I was aggressively seeking out sexual company of adults.
Yes, there are 14-year-olds who are sexual predators who seek to entice adults. Now, legally, the adults need to be held responsible, but I identify this so shocking.
Because I knew it would horrify people, because I wanted sort of power over them. It was my way of rebelling. My way of rebelling. I was the predator at 14, let me tell you.
Do you think that's what's going on with that guy who directed X-Men?
Bryan Singer?
Yeah, a bunch of 14-year-old predators going after that poor man.
I'm not sure it's the case with him, no.
That's a guy.
I lived in Hollywood a while ago.
Did you?
Briefly. And,
did you go to one of his parties?
I went to other people who I won't name of a similar stature in Hollywood. I went to their boat parties and to their house parties and things, and some of the things I have seen have beggared belief.
Yeah? Can you give us like a...
Well, I don't want to be indiscreet about specific people.
Right, you don't have to do that.
It's going
to dance around the facts.
Yeah, dangerous. But I can tell you the truth without dropping anyone in it.
Okay.
I mean, some of the boys there were very young. Very young.
And this is really recently?
I don't remember. No, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't remember.
Statute of limitation.
He doesn't know how very young could mean a 22-year-old who looks 15. So he's not saying that he saw a bunch of 9-year-olds.
I don't remember whether I ever met Bryan Singer or whether I even...
Right, and Richard's going to criticize him for not going to the police. Right, just because you see boys at a party who look 16 doesn't mean that they are 16.
I knew who he was then, but I knew other people of similar stature, as I say, and there were some very young boys around at that time. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of
twinks.
A lot of twinks taking drugs and having unsafe sex with older men, and some of these boys were very young.
What did you think about
for a job,
Yeah, but very young, meaning what? 18, 21, right? To a 70-year-old. Right, someone who's 21 is a very young boy.
Andy Cohen, the guy who runs Bravo, had to apologize for the use of the word twink I thought
Why would
that
you
was,
apologize for Twink?
I thought that was one of the most adorable things that
Why
I'd ever
would you?
seen in my
Is
life.
he gay?
Yes, gay as fuck.
And he
He's
said the
gay
word
as-
twink, and he had to apologize for saying twink
Yes.
because what? Because it was demeaning.
Well,
Okay, so now Richard goes after Milo for those comments.
I mean, he was bragging about, joking about being abused by a priest, saying it could be an amazing experience.
Okay, and what's obviously that's not an ideal way to express your sexuality, but I think Milo's public career should be ended because he joked about when he was underage he had sex with a priest.
One thing I remember, he actually made a claim that in all his LA partying that he does and all these amazing parties that he's invited to, I mean, again, all of these claims are pretty dubious, but that he saw very young boys, being abused in some ways at these parties. Now, if you witness, again, I actually think he's lying, to be honest, because I think he's a sociopath and a liar. But regardless, he might be telling the truth. And if you've witnessed this, the notion that you don't name names or go to the police is absurd. And it's kind of interesting how.
Why is it absurd? A lot of people look 16 when they're 21. You go to a party, you may be inebriated yourself, and you think some of these guys look very young, and you call the police the next day on the basis of your suspicions. You try to check their driver's license.
No one focuses on that, because I think basically at the end of the day, everyone just assumes Milo's lying. And so they're like, yeah, well, probably nothing can be done. He's just, he's just lying about something. He saw some, who knows what he saw. I think he's just a liar.
Okay, so I played Milo's comments that Richard here is castigating, and I don't think Milo's comments are worthy of castigation.
But he was just bragging about it. But it was all in his more kind of broader attempt to put a gay face on right-wing politics. And he's now putting a kind of black face on right-wing politics. So we've replaced Trump with Kanye, this rap artist, whatever. I mean, again, I don't even hate Kanye, but look, this is really weird. And then he's also, I think, pretty consciously replacing me or some 2016 version of myself and putting the face.
So here's the context. Richard Spencer hates Milo because Milo released this Richard Spencer rant.
We're coming back here like a fucking 100 times. I am so mad. I am so fucking mad at these people. They don't do this to fucking me. We're gonna fucking ritualistically humiliate them. I am coming back here every fucking weekend if I have to. Like, this is never over. I win, they fucking lose. That's how the world fucking works. Little fucking kikes. They get ruled by people like me. Little fucking octoroons. My ancestors fucking enslaved those pieces of fucking shit. I rule the fucking world. Those pieces of shit get ruled by people like me. They look up and see a face like mine looking down at them. That's how the fucking world works. We are gonna destroy this fucking town.
Okay, so that's why Richard hates Milo, because Milo released that audio. Let's check out JFRP.
Apparently did go, I wasn't sure when I was reporting it 2 days ago. Apparently did go to Mar-a-Lago with Nick Fuentes, and I believe Milo Yiannopoulos was involved at some point. And, when Milo is around, as someone was pointing out on Gab, so the next future hope for white nationalism in America is a trio formed by a Mexican, an incel Mexican, a gay Jew, and a black rapper. Something is wrong here. If you want to hang on to this as being...
Yeah, maybe they're not white nationalists. Maybe that isn't what primarily animates them. Maybe they are primarily social media personalities, content creators, right? Maybe this isn't the second coming of the Ku Klux Klan, right? And also, plenty of Mexicans identify as white. Plenty of gay Jews identify as white. There's nothing incompatible between Mexican and identifying as white. There's nothing incompatible between Jewish and identifying white. 95% of Jews in America, according to surveys, identify as white. Jews overwhelmingly prefer to live in white neighborhoods.
The source of any sort of advancement for America, this trio formed by Kanye, Milo, and Nick, you will be disappointed. Here's the thing. I've been fascinated by the path of Kanye, and I think he's made some good stuff in the last few weeks. And it would be kind of funny if he wants to do a presidential run. But the more he flirts around Nick Fuentes and Milo, the more he will be dragged into a search for fabulous mimetics that will
Oh yeah. It's Kanye West who's going to be dragged down by Nick Fuentes and Milo, right? It's not that Kanye West ever drags people down. The fabulous artist Kanye West, this innovative, groundbreaking intellectual, right? He's in danger of being dragged down by the shady characters Milo and Nick.
have no purpose but to drag attention. And they're going to fail in the modern.
Oh, as opposed to Kanye West, as opposed to myself, or as opposed to JFRP, right? We're all competing in the attention economy, whether we like it or not. You're competing in the attention economy. I'm competing in the attention economy. Just some people are better at it than others. Nick Fuentes, Kanye West, Donald Trump, Milo Yiannopoulos, right? They're very good, very successful at competing in the attention economy.
Modern America, especially because Trump will be annoyed at all this. He's not going to be interested. People don't want to be associated with anti-Semitism. And Kanye has been marked by the mark of the beast forever. So there is limited realization here. There is no leverage. It's not like this trio can change Trump or change the Republican Party. And so I'm very put off. In a way, I would have been more amazed at what Kanye could have done on his own than with the current duo of Milo Yiannopoulos plus Nick Fuentes, who basically have nothing else to do but to drag attention toward them. And that's what they're trying to do right now. So let's see the report of Milo on this question.
I think the thing that Trump was most perturbed about, me asking him to be my vice president, I think that was like lower on the list.
So here's the thing. You went to Trump and you asked him to be your vice president. This is...
Wait. JF is criticizing Nick Fuentes, Kanye West, Donald Trump, Milo Yiannopoulos for a dinner because the basis of JF's critique is that this dinner is not going to change the Republican Party. It was just a dinner, bro. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. A dinner is just a dinner. A dinner doesn't have to change the trajectory of one of America's two major political parties to have some significance or simply be fun and entertaining to talk about.
It's trolling. So you won't accomplish anything with trolling. And you troll Trump. You troll one of the person who still respects you enough to have a meeting with you openly.
There's some things that caught him off guard. It was the fact that I walked in with intelligence. So Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the lawyers and so many people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist. When he didn't know what the lawyers is, you'll still have your lawyer list. And when all the lawyers said, forget it, Trump's done, there were loyalists running up in the White House, right? And my question would be, why, when you had the chance, did you not free the January 6ers? And I came to him as someone who loves Trump, and I said, go and get Corey back. Go and get these people that...
So it's just amusing that JF thinks he's above attention seeking. I mean, JF, who publicizes like anti-vaccine studies of just the very lowest order, just like absolute tripe, just complete trash. Like JF, who's got a PhD in neuroscience, did postdoc work at Duke, but he will promote, the scuzziest, the stupidest, the least impressive scholarship if it resonates with his audience or with JF's feelings at the time. And somehow he condemns Nick Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos as being attention seekers.
The media tried to cancel and told you to step away from. He basically gives me this would-be mob-esque kind of story, talking to some kid from the south side of Chicago trying to sound mobby or whatever. He goes into the story about all that he went through to get Alice Johnson out of jail and how he didn't do it for Kim, but he did it for me. But then he goes on to say...
So Trump gave him a mob-style speech about, hey, I got through trouble just to help you, and now you're telling me that you want me to be your vice president? You come to my home and insult me like this? I think that was Trump telling Kanye to relax and don't become an impediment to Trump.
That Kim is a... You can tell I said that. And I was thinking, like, that's the mother of my children. Since we know, and all the Christians in America that...
So not clear to me, but he insults Kim. Okay.
I mean, how dare anyone insult Kim Kardashian, right? Someone who released a sex tape to become famous, someone who's famous for being famous. But Kim Kardashian is supposed to be above criticism, above insult. This regal lady, right? Our American royalty, Kim Kardashian. How dare anyone insult her?
But that Kim is not the girlfriend of Kanye anymore.
Of Trump, know that Trump is a conservative. We're going to demand that you hold all policies directly to the Bible. When Trump started basically screaming at me at the table,
it's insane to expect that. American politics in 2021 can or should conform all politics to the Bible, right? The Bible was written approximately 3,000 years ago, right? You're not going to be able to conform all politics to the Bible.
People tell me I was going to lose. I mean, has that ever worked for anyone in history?
You're going to lose. Tell me to lose.
I'm like, well, hold on, Trump. You're talking to Ye.
So I don't think that Ye can have any major impact in this. And I think it's going to be kind of has-been of a field to, if they do some mimetics around it, it's going to be like, we want attention. And that's how it turns out with Milo. We've seen it with his dangerous tour, and I won't name the full name of the tour. It's disparate. It's going to become disparate in the same way Milo is disparate. He's just going to transfer his disparate strategy to Kanye, and you're going to have Nick Fuentes in the back trying to drain some of the magic, some of the energy. Callum Axworth says, I know Jeff and Nick have their beef, but I think this partnership between Ye and Nick can really put pressure on Trump to move towards the Christian right. My God, you are entertaining some positive thoughts here. I don't think that a partnership involving Milo can lead to anything except grifting. This is what Milo does, and this is what I expect him to be.
So grifting. Anyone who uses that as a critique just shows that they're empty, that they don't have an argument to make. If JF had a competitive, killer, powerful argument to make, he'd make the argument, but he can't. So all he does is use these cheap epithets, and all the epithets being thrown around these days, grifter has to be pretty close to being the cheapest.
Be teaching to Nick and Ye. They are in bad hands here. They have basically hired their handler, and nothing good can come from it. Nothing. Fucking nightmare. Trump team does damage control after he dines with Ye and white supremacist Nick Fuentes. The former president's campaign claims he didn't know anything about Fuentes, who joined the rapper under fire for his anti-Semitic remark. So there is something to be said about the dishonesty of this all. I mean, I wouldn't want to meet Trump if it was under hidden, secretive, or deceptive means. And this is what Nick Fuentes has done. Basically, Kanye West said to Trump, hey, I want to have dinner with you. Trump was fooled into thinking, okay, I'm willing to speak with Kanye. But Kanye used the opportunity to bring in Nick Fuentes, claiming that he was his manager, that somehow he had hired him for the campaign. So it is getting to create this encounter under deceptive pretenses. And to me, that's a no-no to begin with. Either in the journalistic, scientific, or political domain, you don't accomplish things with lying. I'm totally against this, what they've done there. Now, it's not that it matters. Trump will be denying that he knows Nick, and he will be like, I didn't know Nick. That's what he said on his Truth Social. First, okay, so you're so disconnected from the internet that you don't know Nick Fuentes. And secondly, you let yourself deceived by this little trolling campaign where this guy is brought in front of you through the lies of Kanye West. That is sad. Former President Donald Trump distanced himself Friday from a pre-Thanksgiving dinner at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida with Ye, formerly known as Kanye West.
Look, most talk show hosts screen their guests, screen their calls, right? Then there was Larry King, who did not screen calls. He just allowed anyone to call in and just cut them off if they're not contributing to the conversation. So yeah, there are advantages to having a team that screens the people that you have dinner with. There are also advantages to lowering the screening and having more unpredictable guests. It's not like there's one approach that stands head and shoulders above all approaches. That, screening, restricting the flow of information that you get, restricting the number of people who can get access to you, restricting the range of opinions you can get. It's not like this restriction is always good, and going outside of that Overton window is always bad.
And white supremacist Nick Fuentes claiming he didn't know the identity of the far-right activist who was unexpectedly brought along with the rapper. This past week, Kanye West called me to have dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Shortly thereafter, he unexpectedly showed up with 3 of his friends, whom I knew nothing about. We had dinner on Tuesday evening with many members present on the back patio. The dinner was quick and uneventful. They then left for the airport. Trump has specified that there's been no anti-Semitism discussed at all. And this is so funny because you get Trump trying to stay within the good graces of the centrism of America. And it's like, don't worry, there was no anti-Semitism. Well, that won't appease the left. The left will say, well, you dined with an anti-Semite. That is a no-no. You should have known, or you should have, once you were aware, you should have kicked it.
It's very rare that it's useful to describe someone as an anti-Semite, right? Occasionally it's true, right? Sometimes somebody's hatred of Jews, hatred of blacks, hatred of homosexuals is the overwhelming characteristic of that person. But very few people are like that. Right? People are anti-Jewish or anti-black or anti-gay or anti-Christian in certain contexts, right? In certain situations when they're having a whole lot of negative experiences with this group, or they've been influenced by their father, such as Hutton Gibson influencing Mel Gibson. But it's rarely a useful label to apply to someone because people are just far more complicated than that. I mean, I had Nick Fuentes on my show for hours and hours. There's absolutely, no anti-Jewish hostility coming from him. So yeah, in some times and places, he says things that are disparaging of Jews, disparaging of the Talmud. Well, guess what? In the Talmud, there are things that are disparaging of non-Jews. There are things that are disparaging, possibly, of Jesus, the Jesus of Christianity fame. There are plenty of things in the Jewish tradition that are highly disparaging of Christians and Christianity, just as in the Christian tradition, there are a lot of things that are highly disparaging of Jews. Now, I've heard some Jewish rabbis say, yeah, but the difference is in the Jewish tradition, we don't have anything about committing genocide against Christians. And in the Christian tradition, they have a lot about committing genocide against Jews, but Jews have rarely been in a position of power where that's even remotely a possibility. So it's very easy for tiny minority groups, or always minority groups, to disparage how majorities conduct affairs, right? There are responsibilities and challenges for majorities that minorities will never know.
You should have depersonified him. There is no sufficient answer for the left toward a Nick Fuentes. So nothing that he can say or do will appease them. And on top of it, it's like, do you really think that the left or the centrist of the media will really be, okay, you checked that there was no anti-Semitism at the table? That is really good. Good job, Trump. Good job defending the Jews at this dinner. It doesn't work. Yahoo News says, Donald Trump dined with white nationalist, Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. One of the fascinating things, this sounds totally like Trump. They say that Trump looked at Nick, and he was explaining to Kanye West, you have no chance of winning. You're not going to win. And he looked at Nick Fuentes and said, Nick, you're going to tell this guy, of course, that he has a chance of winning, but you don't believe it. You're telling him because he's your boss. He's employed you for this campaign, so you're going to deceive him, but you don't really think that Kanye has a chance to win. That is what is reported to have been said by Donald Trump. So,
yeah, of course, Kanye West doesn't have any chance to win. It's a completely bizarre campaign. Kanye West is just a completely bizarre character. I guess in certain frames of mind, he can be, mildly entertaining. I wonder what's going on with my car. She's putting on some dance moves here, but not hearing anything. Let's get back.
It's quite funny just to imagine that this discussion actually happened. That there was a hidden Nick slipped into Mar-a-Lago by Kanye West, and they have this whole discussion where Donald Trump explains to Kanye West he has no chance. And I don't think he has much of a chance. He does have a chance to have an...
Doesn't have any chance. The chat says, the Bible is not a model for good government in America today. It's like trying to purify a post office by sprinkling holy water.
Impact. Not to be a president, I think. Given the recent comments on the Jews, this would disqualify you in American politics generally, no matter how he wants to approach it. From leading the Republican Party, forget it. Being an independent, forget it. But there's one thing that Kanye West can do. He can steal enough vote from the black community and the Republicans to piss off everyone. That he can definitely do. And my guess would be that he's going to drain more right-wingish vote, such that, because the Democrat machine, they're all equipped to go get their mail-in ballots and go coach people not to vote Kanye. But my guess would be that if he's a player in this election, it's going to be through draining from the right wing, from the Republican Party. And therefore, his ultimate effect would be to force in a Democrat victory once again. He can do that. Now, there's a question about whether he should do this. There's arguments for or against. I wouldn't be super set on the question. I think it's good to punish the Republican Party. Is it good, though, to continue having this Democrat economy for 4 more years? 4 more years. That's a lot. It's a lot to endure. I don't care either way, personally, because I will live well in the Democrat economy, but it would help to have a little bit of going back to a Republican economy. That would definitely be welcome. That would be my preference. But sometimes it's worth self-sacrificing and paying a cost to tell the Republicans, as long as you go on this being a pale copy of the Democrat Party, as long as you let the warmongers in, as long as we can't count on you to reduce the size of the state, then fuck you. We're going to do everything we can to get Joe Biden a 12th term. Surialoka says, who is that guy and where did he come from all of a sudden? What kind of interview technique is that? Did he really think that he could talk to Ye or anyone like that? And he sends a link.
Is there somebody in your life?
Okay, he's sending a link to Lex Friedman. Well, I've analyzed the Lex Friedman in full, so...
And let's get a little Nick Fuentes clip here. I promise to be normal at your family dinner this time.
I don't believe in democracy. I do not believe in universal suffrage. I don't support women's rights. I don't support LGBT rights. I believe in race and gender essentialism. I'm Catholic. I'm a Catholic reactionary. I believe that organized Jewry is extremely influential in the United States and pushes America towards an open society, liberalism, internationalism for their own benefit at the expense of America. I think they do that corporately. These are all things that I believe.
Okay, big deal. Who really thinks that this guy's going to pose some major threat to America? All right, this is Donald Trump on Howard Stern.
Who don't you like? Because I even heard you defended Michael Jackson.
Well, I did. I defended. I heard your show yesterday, and it was sort of funny and sad at the same time.
It is sad, but
see, I knew Michael at his peak.
He lives in one of your buildings?
He lives in Trump Tower. He has an apartment.
And he also was around when he was married to Lisa Marie. You were sort of witness to that whole thing.
I was a part of it because he met Lisa Marie at Mar-a-Lago.
That's right.
In Palm Beach, and he fell in love.
Come on.
I'm telling you, Howard.
What are you talking about?
Howard.
Come here. Look at me.
It was love.
This is Howard you're talking about.
Listen, first of all, it was a little bit of a different Michael.
Okay.
Michael Jackson, 15 years ago, was the greatest superstar since Elvis. He was the greatest.
He had his day. He had his day.
He had his day, and he blew it. And,
Right.
you know, some plastic surgeon blew it for him, okay? I mean, frankly, if he didn't have... You know, it started with the Pepsi-Cola, with the bomb that landed on his head and screwed him up, and it went on. And, you know, Michael, it's a very tragic thing. Michael Jackson's a very smart, very good guy who truly has changed a lot. And
But wait a second. What do you think? Do you think the guy, I mean, sleeping with kids in the room, come on, what's up with that? You know.
Well, I know
we spend
this.
all day trying to get chicks in our
I
room.
defended him. I defended him, and then the announcer asked me, "Well, would you allow your son Eric to spend some time?" I said, "Are you crazy?" He goes, which was not a good defense. I think. I blew.
Yeah, but you wouldn't let your son spend any time in some adult guy's bedroom anyway, no matter who the guy is.
My sons were really cute, beautiful little kids with white hair and gorgeous little kids when they were little, and they're still beautiful, but now they're big guys.
Answer me this.
Eric is 6'6". I'll never forget. 10 years ago, Eric was like 7, and Michael was at Mar-a-Lago. And he said, "Trump, your son is very beautiful. I must take him to Neverland."
Get out of here.
Now, I thought this was the nicest thing. I said, "Isn't this nice? He's the nicest guy. He wants to take my son to Neverland." Then I said, "What is Neverland? Where is it?"
You're never going to see him.
What does that mean?
He'd call and say, "Where is Eric?" And Eric, went to school and stuff, and I just couldn't do it.
You see how you can get sucked in,
And now I'm very
though?
happy about it.
But do you see how you can get sucked in?
You would have done it.
Well, no, but he probably would have been fine with my son. I don't think he was going to do it.
See, that's ballsy.
He probably would have just been fine. Not such a big deal. I will be back in Los Angeles at the end of January. All right, let's get more from Richard Spencer. No, let's get more here from JF Garrett. Where's JF?
So I will not come back on it. Fox News is giving coverage to the story. White House slams Trump's dinner with Nick Fuentes, saying bigotry and hate have no place in America. Well, I thought that Trump was the boss of hate in America. I thought he was basically Hitler, virtually Hitler, literally Hitler. Trump has said Fuentes came with and that he does not know who he is. Bigotry, hate, and anti-Semitism have absolutely no place in America, including at Mar-a-Lago.
Bigotry, hate, and anti-Semitism is present with everyone who's interacting with a large number of Jews or with interacting with a large number of people who are very different from you. Different groups have different interests. Different groups have different gifts. Different groups have different cultural practices. Of course, you're going to feel positively and negatively towards those who are different from you. But generally speaking, we tend to fear and dislike those who are different. I think Mark Twain says, even the angels hate strangers, and the Jew is everywhere a stranger. Richard Hanania says, one reason Milo Fuentes will never recapture the magic of 2016 is they used to freak normal liberals out, and it was fun. Now liberals are so hysterical that normal GOP causes them to melt down. Don't need some kind of censored performance artist. He has no role. No. The left is simply more effective. People learn over time. The left is much more effective at dealing with the alt-right, the dissident right, with MAGA, than they were back in 2015, 2016. It's not that liberals are just so hysterical that anything sends them into full meltdown. Liberals and the left can be highly effective. They are frequently highly effective. They're at least as effective as Republicans.
It's amazing to see Democrats care about the level of hate present at Mar-a-Lago. It seems that you shouldn't be surprised at all. It seems, based on leftist discourse, that Trump is literally Orange Hitler. Therefore, him meeting with young Hitler and accompanied by Black Hitler, that would be what you expect. But you can see that the Democrats don't even believe in their bullshit when they say something like this. Like, there shouldn't be hate at Mar-a-Lago. Well, according to your discourse, that would disqualify Trump from being at Mar-a-Lago. Holocaust denial is repugnant and dangerous, and it must be forcefully condemned. All right, so that was the noise made by the fellows of the meme, Milo, Nick, Kanye. A good and nice and somewhat fun round of memetics, but that came at the cost of deception. And what's going to happen eventually is that Kanye West will lose his ins with Trump. It's probably already happened in the sense that Trump will never again entertain a request by Kanye. You don't betray.
So memetics comes from the word mimicry. So I don't see how using the word memetics is some powerful critique here.
You don't betray someone like Trump without paying the price eventually. And Trump was on Truth Social. He said, "Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, was asking me for..."
Okay, this is fairly dull plotting analysis. Let's get some Richard Spencer.
Case of this, I guess now formerly gay, both he claims both Catholic and Jewish identity. Who knows what the hell he is? Again, when you're dealing with a liar, just take everything they.
When you're dealing with a liar, right? In which circumstances? I'm sure there are areas where Milo is truthful, and there are areas of his life where he dissembles, just like, say, for me or for JF or for Richard or for Donald Trump. We all have areas in our lives where we're consistently honest. We all have areas in our lives where we're consistently not honest.
They say with a truckload of salt. I mean, it's all bullshit. I don't even know there's no even point in speculating about like what he actually believes or is he really dedicated.
Oh, as opposed to Richard Spencer. Oh, no point in even speculating what does Richard Spencer really believe. Richard Spencer's been absolutely all over the map. To me, that just makes him entertaining and compelling. I don't look to Richard Spencer the truth. I look to him for intellectual entertainment. But all these critiques that Richard is making about Milo, thousands of people have made the identical critiques about Richard, and they have as much validity with regard to Milo as they do with regard to Richard.
Did Judaism? Oh, is he a Catholic? Was he gay? Is he now not gay? Is he now straight? It's just the guy is a sociopath. There's no identity there. You're just like you're in a.
As opposed to Richard, who's been all over the place with his politics.
House of mirrors.
You're like a chameleon,
what's
right?
real and what's
I'm
exactly,
gay, I'm not gay.
Yeah, you're in a house of mirrors. Like, what's real? What's an inflection? I don't know. I mean, it's just all nonsense. And so,
as opposed to the Richard Spencer, who was always drinking liquor every time he went on a live stream between 2015 and 2018, as far as I remember, but now sounds completely different that he's largely given up drinking.
I think, look, I would say this about Nick Fuentes. I guess I'm in a very fair mood tonight. I do think that Nick Fuentes, no matter how obnoxious I might find him, at least his public persona, I do think he's actually a good faith actor. I don't think he's just a lying sociopath. I think
people rarely are just good faith actors or lying sociopaths, right? People are good faith actors in some things, and they're sociopathic in other things. Richard and the news media always want to essentialize people as good or bad, as anti-Jewish or pro-Christian or pro-white or anti-black. Or people are complicated, and this idea that you can just designate them, oh, these are the good guys, these are the good faith actors, these are the grifters and the con men, not usually a useful or accurate endeavor.
Believes this stuff. I think a lot of it is very understandably in a way just just immature nonsense. Let's go back 1,000 years where, if a woman expressed an opinion, you could throw her in the river or something. Let's have a Catholic dictatorship. All of this stuff, when you hear teenagers or, men in their 20s are very immature. I mean, I know what it's like. When you hear that among youth, it's just, you just laugh it off. It's just, it might come from an honest place, but it's just kind of venting or whatever you want to say, tough talk. But I do think that he's genuine. And obviously, no one in their right mind would turn down
being genuine. There are very few instances where it's important to be genuine, and they're primarily like one-on-one relationships. Aside from that, being genuine is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, right? It's not some value that you should strive for. It's not some distinguishing characteristic of the good guy. And again, like all other characteristics, genuine is situational. People tend to be genuine in some areas of their life and tend to be fake and performers in other areas of your life. When you're at a job, you're basically a slave. 40 hours a week, you are your boss's slave, right? And it does not pay for you to be genuine at your job. That does not make you a bad person. But when you talk to customers and co-workers and superiors and bosses, right, it does not pay usually to be genuine. That's a bad idea. When you're talking to people who can hurt you, right, genuinely does not pay to be genuine.
Dinner meeting with Donald Trump. So I understand why he did it. I think he might think that, Trump and Ye will join forces and it will be this Christian nationalism, or, who knows what he thinks exactly. But whatever you want to say about him, and I do find him obnoxious, I do think he's a good faith actor. I think he believes what he's doing. And much as in Stop the Steal and in 2021, January 6th, he's getting dragged along by people who are using him. And
Nick doesn't use people, right? It's not like there are users and those who get used, right? Sometimes that's an accurate, useful descriptor, but generally speaking, we're all using other people and getting used, right? There aren't these clear-cut categories of good guys and bad guys, users and those being used, right? Sometimes we're using, sometimes we're being used, sometimes we think we're using others when in fact we're being used. These things are complicated, situational, and vary.
This is what I would speculate. So let me read this article. This was published at Timcast. So they have a blog. This is Tim Pool's blog. So really one of the most obnoxiously stupid human beings on the planet, Tim Pool, whose popularity reveals much about our civilization. This is written by Cassandra Fairbanks, who, former Russian asset, but not in an interesting way. It's not like she's a devious spy or something. She just worked for Sputnik and RT, just got paid. She's just a hack. I knew her. Anyway, let me just read this article and I'll tell you what I think about it. So Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, brought political powerhouse Karen Giorno and controversial commentator Nick Fuentes to dinner with former President Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago this week. Interesting that she describes Nick Fuentes as controversial, as opposed to Christian nationalist or white nationalist or white supremacist or neo-Nazi or whatever. Ye and the former president have both announced their intention to run for the White House in 2024. The dinner between Ye and Trump had been previously arranged, but the additional guests were brought on by author and political commentator Milo Yiannopoulos. There we have it. So this was arranged. Milo, who is still clearly a wheeler dealer, he interned for Marjorie Taylor Greene. He's one of these people who has this kind of like preternatural ability to insinuate himself in places. He's working behind the scenes in this, and he's admitted it because Milo ultimately wrote the story. I know how this stuff works. You give things to a dumb reporter, and she just is a stenographer, basically, who's been named by the fashion and entertainment mogul as his campaign director. So Milo is already Ye's campaign director. He has weaseled his way in there. On Thursday evening, Ye shook up Thanksgiving when he tweeted a video featuring a discussion between himself and Yiannopoulos about the meeting. And in that video, that's the one I was referencing earlier, Ye is kind of being the alpha dog vis-a-vis Trump. It's fairly interesting. Ye said that he thinks Trump was, quote, most perturbed, end quote, by him asking the former president to be his VP. Well, I can understand that. But the former president was, quote, really impressed with Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the lawyers and people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist. That was Kanye's statement. When he didn't know where the lawyer is, you'll still have your loyalist, Ye said, seemingly ad-libbing a line that would have fit perfectly into one of his hit songs. Great writing, Cassandra. Ye continued, when all the lawyers said, forget it, Trump's done, the loyalists were running up on the White House. Yeah, J6. The rap icon explained that he questioned the former president about not pardoning people who were arrested for protesting on his behalf on January 6th and suggested that he bring back the people who worked on his 2016 campaign, but have since been canceled. So they want to basically recreate 2016. So this is good. So they're playing two games here. On the one hand, they're using Kanye to kind of as a, this is the real Trump, this is the real Christian nationalist. But then they're also they recognize reality that Trump has obviously a much better chance to win, so they're kind of pushing him to do this. So they're doing this move on him. Ye said that Trump attempted to change the subject of his pardoning of Alice Johnson, the grandmother who had been serving life without the possibility of parole for nonviolent drug offenses. The woman's freedom has become a passion project for Kim Kardashian. Trump, according to Ye, had said that there's a misspelling typo in here. He had said that he pardoned her for him, that is Kanye, not Kardashian. Things at the dinner began to unravel when Trump insulted Kardashian, the mother of Ye's children. When Trump started basically screaming at me at the table, telling me I'm going to lose. I mean, has that ever worked for anyone in history? I'm like, hold on, you're talking to Ye, the candidate said at the end of the video. According to a source familiar with the events at the dinner, this is Milo, who asked to remain anonymous. This is again Milo. Ye had arrived at Mar-a-Lago with Giorno who served as Trump's Florida chief strategist in 2016, and later a senior advisor for his campaign, as a power move to show that he's serious about the White House bid. Giorno has worked for multiple presidents and is regarded as a highly formidable at running campaigns. Yeah, just some hack. Though several reporters are citing anonymous sources to claim that Fuentes was not present at the dinner, multiple people have confirmed to Timcast that he was, including Yiannopoulos and Giorno. Okay, he was present. He was brought there by Milo. Trump was not given a heads up Kanye would be bringing Fuentes with him to Mar-a-Lago, and Trump did not meet Fuentes while he was there, according to a person familiar. Nick attended the dinner and sat across from the president. I sat to the president's right and Ye to his left, Giorno said. The president was by himself for dinner, but invited Ye to meet some people on the patio. Okay. We had a traditional turkey dinner, which wasn't on the menu, Giorno told Timcast. It was delicious, blah, blah, blah. Yiannopoulos, according to the source, sent Giorno as a signal to Trump that, she's literally repeating paragraphs. She's such an idiot. Here, it gets juicy. Halfway through the dinner, Trump gets a call, the source told Timcast. When he comes back, the whole tenor of the dinner changes, and he starts ranting about Kim Kardashian, saying that she's disgusting and all the rest of it. Ye just looked around the table and said, "That's the mother of my children that you're talking about."
Okay, let's just take a brief break. What crazy thing is Curtis Yarvin up to these days? And
Live.
he's endorsing Caroline.
Go to art museums. Give it some thought. It was a lot of things, but then I don't know. We said a lot of this last week, but the but God, I mean, people are
talking about the
effective altruism's
FTX.
enemies, and I hadn't realized how many there are using this to taint them. I mean, there was a piece in the New York Times co-authored by this Cade Metz guy who did this kind of takedown of the rationalist community and Scott Alexander and all that.
Right.
And he said, effective altruism has been associated with polyamory. And this is like, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that's kind of a stretch.
Did they get Curtis Yarvin in there? He's always in. I guess not. He's on the other side.
Well, Curtis Yarvin, I think I sent you a thing where he was of him worshiping. He has a kind of connection. Him worshiping this 28-year-old woman who was the CEO of Alameda, SBF's hedge fund. It's funny. She had gone to Stanford and her parents were professors at MIT. He went to MIT and his parents were professors at Stanford Law School. They met at some kind of trading firm. He recruited her to be his CEO. Her last name is
Catherine Ellison.
Ellison.
I know. I talked about the Curtis Yarvin rescuing Catherine Ellison from the scandal when I cheated on you with Ann Coulter's podcast. And the point is, it's like the classic white knight male fantasy. You rescue this cute damsel in distress, and boy, is she grateful that you rescued her. So I not knowing anything about the case and whether in fact she is innocent, it seemed clear that, not since Eric Erickson tried to rescue Megyn Kelly from Trump has there been a clearer case of the white knight fallacy.
But is she cute? The picture.
Yeah. Wow. This is the woman that Sam Bankman-Fried was back.
Pictures I've seen make her look 11 years old, like before you even start using words like that. She looks like. I mean, it's funny how young she looks. It's like
what did
Woody
she call
Allen
her?
Young.
Cute nerd girl or something? Nerd girl. Anyway, she looks like a cute nerd girl.
And Sam Harris quit Twitter. Like Sam Harris is always having hyperbolic reactions to the mildest criticism. I understand that that Twitter must be very painful for him. He blames the technology of Twitter. He blames social media. He blames Twitter for upsetting him, right? Rather than looking at his own character defects, rather than looking at his own exaggerated sense of self-importance, rather than looking at, why am I so knocked off kilter by things on Twitter? He wants to blame Twitter for his unhappiness. He doesn't consider how perhaps he could better handle Twitter, or maybe there's something going on with him that doesn't allow him to use Twitter. Why can't he handle disputation? Like, why is it so upsetting for him? Why is he such a tender flower that he just gets knocked off kilter by Twitter? And he's peddling his meditation app, right? It's supposed to make you calm and centered, and you just can't understand Sam Harris's approach to politics unless you meditate, which is absolute nonsense. It's just absurd. but people want to blame things outside themselves for their problems. And Sam Harris is 100% like this. He wants to blame Twitter for his problems. He thinks he can solve many of his problems by deleting his Twitter. Well, guess what? His problems are going to follow him.
And this is what I was going to ask you. I'd say that.
Now, some people are better off without Twitter. Some people are better off without YouTube. Some people are better off without using social media. But generally speaking, if you have problems with any of these things, your problems are not your problems. Your problems are just symptoms of deeper problems. They are prompts. They are incentives for you to go deeper inside, do the deeper work, and find out why you are so upset. Find out why you can't handle this stimulus. Because there will be other stimuli coming along that you're not going to be able to handle. If you can't handle Twitter, there are all sorts of things that life is going to throw at you that you're not going to deal with very well.
There were two things that fractured from that looking in from the
COVID later, but Trump was the
So let's start with Trump, because I want to talk about COVID as well. But if we start with Trump, you took a different view to almost everybody, I would say, in what was described as IDW, in the sense that you were, I think you were calling for Twitter to shut down Trump's account and were happy that it happened.
Yeah.
That's a very different position to pretty much everybody else. Why did you take that position?
Well, for two reasons. One, so the generic reason is, and this is something I've never gotten a clear answer on from any of the people who took the different side of this. And many of these people are ostensibly libertarians, or at least quasi-libertarians. They want something like a minimum of state coercion and control. They don't want just a proliferation of laws to just to make our lives more difficult. And that's an orientation. Though I consider myself liberal and have always voted as a Democrat. I mean, until we.
Right. So Glenn Bedley makes the point. Even John Podhoretz admitted he can't handle Twitter. And yeah, it's a good thing if you can admit you can't handle something, but that's very different from saying the problem's outside of myself. Also, if you admitting you can't handle something, that should be a prompt. That should be an incentive to do the work, to go inside, to find out what it is about this thing that is knocking you off your equilibrium. Now, I'm not talking about if you can't handle smack, if you can't handle cocaine, if you can't handle meth, if you can't handle something that's obviously bad for anyone. But if millions and tens of millions of people are using something without any ill effect and you can't use it, then it's important to know if you've got a serious problem where you seriously need to abstain, such as alcoholics with alcohol, debtors with debting, or if this is just a prompt saying, hey, maybe I need to examine myself and maybe I need to do some recalibration. Maybe I need to form some new neural pathways.
This woke apocalypse, I would have certainly called myself a Democrat without much self-consciousness. I've always had this libertarian kind of underpinning to my politics, which is, if the private sector can handle it, it's probably best done there, right? I mean, just given the level of inefficiency and poorly aligned incentives you get in a government bureaucracy. And peaceful, honest people should have the right to be left alone. So it's like, unless somebody is harming people or guilty of fraud, i.e. theft, stealing from people, we don't need the government involved. And so that's my general framework. And many people ostensibly in this group ostensibly agreed with that. So when I look at Twitter, Twitter is a company that can decide to, as someone who has started information-based companies at this point, I'm just thinking about.
So yeah, Andrew Tate is back on Twitter. What does Richard Spencer think of Twitter? Of Andrew Tate? He's not a big Andrew Tate respecter.
What's the scenario under which I would want the government to force me to have Alex Jones on my podcast or to have Donald Trump on my podcast? Shouldn't I be able to have anyone I want on my podcast? Is it conceivable?
Yeah, John Podhoretz just defaults to not just to humor, but he is just his nastiness, his gratuitous cruelty, his reflexive dive into ad hominem attacks just shows what a repellent character he seems to be. And this isn't just limited to Twitter, right? This seems to be reflective of who John Podhoretz is through much of his life, right? Many people have had these horrible experiences with John Podhoretz. So his underlying personality comes out very quickly on Twitter, and it's disgusting.
That my podcast could grow so big, or that that any other platform, I've considered creating a social media platform, right? If that could grow so big that suddenly the government would have an interest in forcing me to have people on it who, for whatever reason, I object to having on. I mean, so this is a way in which I'm more extreme than most people on the left. Like I do think at this point in history, you should be able to have a social media platform and exclude any specific group you want, and just say that's the way we do it, right? And if you don't like
Well, obviously you can't. You'd get sued and shut down if you did that to blacks or to gays or to homosexuals. So Sam Harris has his fantasy about how the world should work. It obviously doesn't work.
They could boycott us, right? So like I wouldn't have said this in 1964 when we have to pass the Civil Rights Act. But at this point, I think you should have the right to be an asshole who destroys your reputation and suffers the penalties in the marketplace of ideas, right? So I think if you want to just have a social media network for beautiful people, right, or people who are, guys who are over 6'2" and blonde hair and blue eyes, right? I can't get on. You should feel free to raise money for that enterprise, launch it, and I'll laugh when it fails, right? So like that's now under some construal that kind of thing, is or should be illegal, if you're just a normal person on the left, but. I think at this moment in history it shouldn't be. But in any case, when I look at Twitter, I see a company that has terms of service, which people like Alex Jones and Trump clearly violated. I mean, whether they in fact violated this terms of service as written, I think they violated any coherent terms of.
We're all committing numerous felonies every day. All right. If the government wants to get you, if there are sufficient resources out there, they can get you. So the fact that someone's violating terms of service on an app is not sufficient reason for calling for their banishment from the app. It's how egregious are the violations.
Service that Twitter should have had, right? Like you shouldn't knowingly be able to turn your mob on a private citizen and ruin their lives through doxing, right? Which is what Jones and Trump were doing. It just again and again and again to people. Every time, I mean, Jones was doing it with the Sandy Hook.
I don't remember Donald Trump doing a whole lot of doxing. Sam Harris just made that up. He just lied. He just made something up to smear Donald Trump that has no foundation in reality.
Parents, right? You literally have.
But Sam, you're conflating two very different people. I mean, Alex Jones does not belong in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in Alex Jones.
But I would dispute that. I think Trump is essentially, we got Alex Jones as president of the United States.
Again, that's absolutely absurd to equate Donald Trump with Alex Jones. Are there things that Donald Trump has in common with Alex Jones? Yes, but they're still very different people. Like Donald Trump hasn't done anything like what Alex Jones did with Sandy Hook.
I don't think they're very different people. I think that it's the same phenomenon in my world. Because just the level of misinformation, disinformation, lying, the charlatanism.
Well, you seem to be engaging in quite a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and charlatanism just in the last minute, Sam. So should you be banned from social media too? Are you just like Alex Jones?
The conscious fraudulence of everything at scale and the targeting of individuals with known consequences, right? Like Trump.
Oh, so no other politicians do this? So Maxine Waters and Democrats yelling, no justice, no peace, instigating, millions of people going out onto the streets and rioting, mostly peacefully, sending the murder rate, crime rate skyrocketing.
Trump, every time Trump singles out a specific citizen and says, look at this jackass who's trying to, whatever the claim would be, that is a human sacrifice. We know that person's life is just never the same again because he's.
Really? How many lives have been absolutely ruined because Donald Trump criticized them on Twitter? I mean, if Donald Trump criticized me on Twitter, my life would go on. It would not be ruined.
Turned tens of millions of morons on that person, and vicious morons on that. I mean, that's the core of the Trump phenomenon is now and has been for many years. I mean, really since the beginning.
This is just lies. Tens of millions of morons are not turned on against individuals because Donald Trump criticized those individuals. Sam Harris is just lying.
And since he, certainly since he became the front runner, and certainly since he became elected in 2016, it's a personality cult. I mean, it has all the dynamics of a personality cult. These are not reasoning. Yes, there are a few calculated people like.
As opposed to Barack Obama and Barack Obama's following. That's not a personality cult. And Bill Clinton didn't have a personality cult. John F. Kennedy, no personality cult there. It's just Donald Trump and his personality cult. Very dangerous.
Peter Thiel on the margins, who have some story as to why they would back him, right? But the core of the cult, which is all nested with QAnon and conspiracy thinking and the big lie, and it's like Trump can do no wrong, right? He's that is so. It's I mean, as a Venn diagram, it overlaps 80% with the Alex Jones phenomenon. So I see them as the same problem. I see these.
It overlaps about 10% with the Alex Jones phenomenon.
These are if they're not actually clinically, diagnosable as psychopaths, they're the next best thing. These are people who are so.
Sam Harris can't handle non-PhDs criticizing him on Twitter, so he rage quits Twitter, and he blames Twitter for not banning people like Donald Trump.
Malignantly selfish and so careless with respect to the consequences.
We're all selfish. Like everybody, probably on average, is about 95% selfish. So this idea that Donald Trump is just some, exceptional level of selfishness is absurd.
Of their actions in the lives of others. That if you own a platform, or you're overseeing a public company that owns a platform, why should the government force you to keep these people on? Right? Like, you should be free to say, sorry, you're not on my watch. Are you going to be having these consequences? And with Trump, it was after January 6th. It was just, that's when it happened. I thought it happened a year too late, but January 6th finally convinced Dorsey he should kick Trump off. And that, if that's not going to convince you that, at that point we had a sitting president who, for months and months and months, at least 6 or 8 months, certainly months prior to the November election, would not commit to a peaceful transfer of power. And then he did, certainly something, whether it was everything in his power or just a lot, he managed to see that we did not have a peaceful transfer of power, right?
So a less dramatic way of saying this is that Donald Trump has never been a graceful loser. And in the fall of 2020, Donald Trump, again, true to fall, was not a graceful loser. Right? That's a less dramatic way of saying the same thing. Right? The United States was never in peril by the January 6 rioters. Like, even if they'd gotten through to Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, the United States would have continued on. Joe Biden would still have taken the presidency on January 20th, 2021. Donald Trump did not have the power or the ability or even the inclination to stay in power by some kind of military coup. Sam Harris is a lover of the dramatic far more than a lover of the real. He has a fantasy about Donald Trump and the nefarious powers of the MAGA movement. Like it exercises his emotions and gets him going to war in his hero system. He's going to war with the forces of darkness on the side of democracy. But he's deranged.
And then, so what's the mob going to do?
He's deranged here. Like, sometimes Sam Harris makes sense. Here, he sounds deranged to me.
Do on January 7th and 8th and 9th, if you just leave Trump on the platform. I just thought it was a
Is Sam Harris a graceful loser? No, he is not someone who tends to be graceful to any kind of challenge or debate.
very simple decision to kick him off, and it totally analogous to the Alex Jones decision. Alex Jones is just less consequential, but there are Sandy Hook parents who have had to move 10 times since their kids were murdered. That's all on Alex Jones, right? And it's all conscious. It's all he could see the consequences of his actions in real time. It's not like he woke up after 5 years and thought. Oh.
And what has Donald Trump done that is analogous to that? Nothing. You couldn't name it. If you had an analogy, if you had an example, if you were able to back up your point, if you had empirical evidence to support your argument, you would present it, Sam Harris, but you don't, so you don't. You can't and you don't.
Oh my God, I can't believe that, it was totally inadvertent. I released a podcast and, then it had this totally unforeseeable consequence in the lives of these grieving parents. No, he monetized their misery with just a blizzard of lies.
Right, and no one before in the history of the news media has ever monetized anyone's misery. This is an entirely new innovation, some nefarious act by Alex Jones. Never before done by a journalist have they ever monetized anybody's misery. Shocking.
Alex Jones is, for me, a different case. But I hear what you're saying.
Trump is just...
I hear what you say. In your mind, they're similar.
He got the reputation washing of having successfully become president.
So who is to blame for Supreme Court justices being harassed and threatened at their homes? Good question.
He's Alex Jones.
Okay. Yeah. Francis, before you move us into COVID, let me try from a different angle.
So if I call Sam Harris, he's Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Not exactly a convincing argument. Calling Donald Trump Alex Jones, similarly, not a convincing argument.
Sam, because I want to explore this intellectual point, right? Do you really want to live in a country where you have a digital public square, which in my opinion Twitter is. We can disagree about that if you want, but that's my opinion. It's a digital public square. And you have a company that has clearly one-sided enforcement. I hear what you're saying about delegitimizing the electoral process that Trump did. Right. And I was concerned about that. I think you can't question the system in that way. But when you see that he gets banned and then a story about Hunter Biden gets banned, that under the guise of it being Russian disinformation, we later learn it wasn't Russian disinformation. Right. That to a lot of people seems like, I said it when we were talking to Joe Rogan, it's putting your hand on the scales in favor of one side. In the digital public square, you add that to the banning of Trump and lots of other people being banned from one side predominantly. Right. Is that the world you want to live in, where one team gets to just ban people it disagrees with off the platform? It gets to pretend that things that are true are not true. It gets to shut down the sharing of information with people who want to make their own democratic choice?
Well, it's a hard question, and there are pieces of the question that are individually hard. It's like the Hunter Biden laptop story is something that I still don't have a full opinion about. I actually don't know what we should have done about that. I mean, so I see the reason. I see both sides of it.
What we should have done.
Side of it.
Right, what we should do, because you can't trust the people to have information. We need gatekeepers to decide what the people should be allowed to find out.
But let's leave that piece aside. The bias on the platform. So either Twitter is a company that can do what it wants, right? It can have its own terms of service. It can change its policies. It can change. It can decide to. It can have a point of view or not, right? Or we have to seize it as some kind of crucial piece of public infrastructure that has to.
Do you not think that it is a crucial piece of public infrastructure?
I think people who are addicted to Twitter feel it is, right? Most, and I think it's, I don't think it should be. And it's odd to say that it's just so. First of all, it's just. I mean, Facebook is much bigger, right? It's just that we have a lot of smart people, journalists, brands, political people, concentrated on Twitter. So Twitter moves the conversation more than Facebook does, but it's the scale of it is much smaller. I don't know. I just feel like people can start their own companies, which they have, right? They can start competitors at Twitter. There are many people who Twitter is not. It's still a failing business, right? It's like it's not. It doesn't work really. I mean, Facebook is a much better business. There's nothing stopping Facebook from becoming stickier for intellectuals and journalists, and it's attracting more of the conversation over there. I don't know. It's an extreme move to say you can't be biased, right? Like who's going to say that? But behind the saying of that is a law in the end, and therefore it's a gun. Therefore it's jail time for the person who wants to keep breaking the law, right? So like just imagine if Twitter.
Who exactly has made the argument that you can't be biased? Right? Obviously, it's impossible not to have some bias. People on the right are arguing that they resent that the left controls almost all the major institutions in this country. They resent that the left dominates the means to make cultural productions. They resent, the left's stranglehold over the news media, over the professions, over NGOs, non-governmental organizations, over the entertainment industry, right? There's a anger there, and it doesn't always express itself delicately, subtly, softly, and kindly, right? Those who are excluded from the ability to cultural means of production tend to resent that, and they're not always really sweet and kind in their reactions, right? So left-wing domination provokes a right-wing backlash, which isn't always sweetness and light.
The Twitter board, like everyone gets what they want. Everyone who's of this opinion gets what they want. We're gonna come in and enforce something like a zero bias state in Twitter, insofar as that's possible. And if the employees and the board just say, sorry, we have a point of view. We don't like these people and we like these people. What does now you just break up the company? You just say.
Sam Harris is making an argument that nobody has ever made. Who has ever made the argument that he is arguing against here? He's just making it up. He's attacking a straw man.
I thought it should have happened with Twitter is I thought Jack Dorsey.
He's very hard to debate with or to even question because he just goes on, refuses to address your points. He just sits on his high horse and pontificates.
Should have deleted it. I mean, I literally thought he would have got the Nobel Peace Prize had he just at a certain point deleted it, right?
He thinks it would have been great if Twitter had been deleted 5 years ago because of Donald Trump.
But I don't. So in any case, should they be forced to be impartial? I'm very skeptical of that. Should they be cajoled by unhappy people like yourselves or like the Trump fans to behave better?
Counter-argument,
yeah,
Sam.
I mean, I think so. Yes, I think if they were going to be. The first thing to admit is it may be impossible to do this impeccably, right? It's like until we have perfect artificial intelligence, it's just going to be impossible.
Okay, I don't think Sam Harris is covering himself in glory. Now, Sam Harris became notorious in that interview saying that if suppressing the Hunter Biden story or suppressing any news story would have enabled the defeat of Donald Trump in 2020, he'd be all for it. So let's go back here to Richard Spencer commenting on Kanye West, Nick Fuentes, Donald Trump.
By this point, the whole meeting had become a disaster. Okay, that's interesting. So basically, I don't think that Trump recognized, I genuinely don't think that Trump knew who Fuentes was. And I'm not saying that out of any kind of personal bias. Trump starts getting edgy, antsy, fidgety, and angry. He can't get them out of there fast enough, the source said. The source is Milo, clearly. When you get up to leave, there's an enormous line of people who want photos with Ye, and not a single one of them asked for one with Trump alone, the source said. All right, that's just a complete lie. That's just pissing on Trump. I mean, it's just so stupid. You can see where they're going with this. Trump was just kind of allowed to join in some of them. By the end, Trump was like, is the car here? Is the car here? Where's the car? This is the kicker. It's the last line. Oh, no, it's not the last one. I'll skip down to that. Fuentes, once an avid Trump supporter, is rumored to be in line to serve as the communications director for the Ye 24 campaign. So this thing is written by Milo. And, you know, Cassandra served as a stenographer, and Milo is basically promoting this in the media, that he wants Fuentes as a campaign communications director.
Okay, let's stop the presses. Is the major story in America right now that Aaron Rodgers essentially said no mas to the Philadelphia Eagles, leaving the game in the third quarter, blaming some kind of oblique strain, and that Jordan Love, the backup quarterback, is the new leader of the Green Bay Packers? Was tonight the night that Aaron Rodgers passed the torch to Jordan Love to be the Green Bay Packers quarterback and leader going forward, because Aaron Rodgers quit on his team in a very tight 40-33 final loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Cowboys have 3 losses. The Eagles only have 1. Won't be so easy. I'm pretty sure the Cowboys will beat the Eagles Christmas Eve, but somebody else has to beat the Eagles if the Cowboys are going to have a chance of winning the NFC East.
To be.
Whoops, I don't want any more from Sam Harris. I want Richard.
For Ye, which just is pretty absurd. I mean, I guess it's just crazy enough to work or something like that, in the sense that he is, you know, a huge live streamer, has a built-in audience, much more than, say, Corey Lewandowski or any of these idiots that worked on 2016 Trump. But yeah, this is what I would suggest. So all of this is kind of fascinating and just crazy enough to be true or what have you. But what I would suggest is that there might be something else going on here. So I'll just lay my hands on the table.
Okay, so let's imagine you walk into your child's kindergarten and see this lovely
I am starting year 6 of teaching today. Super excited. I am starting year 6 of teaching today. Super excited. I am starting.
Oh, I'd be so stoked to have this delightful creature teaching my child. So you're probably wondering, what does Andrew Tate think about the Balenciaga situation? All right, they were putting bondage into advertising aimed at children.
If it was done on purpose, which as we've just deciphered it must have been, why are they doing this? And I don't think many people understand why a brand like Balenciaga would so openly show the world that they are trying to promote pedophilia.
Tell them.
I'll tell them why. So some could argue that they're trying to advertise it and encourage it. Normalize. And that is the case. That is what they're trying to do. But it actually goes a level deeper than that. Satanists, people who worship Satan, believe in karmic retribution. They believe that they can suffer the consequence of lying and tricking you. So the very simple premise is this. If I sell poison apples and I write apples and you come and eat one, I poisoned you. But if I sell poison apples and I have a sign that says apples, they're poison, and you come and eat one, you committed suicide. I haven't murdered you. You've committed suicide.
That's what Satanists believe.
Satanists believe by telling you what they're doing, they don't have any karmic retribution. I'm not responsible for the I'm not responsible for all the negative fallout from my actions if they understood what I was doing and allowed me to do it. This is why they show you and tell you what they're doing. If I show you and tell you that we are pedophiles and you continue to buy our products, then you're supporting pedophilia. And you're obviously okay with us being pedophiles. If I do it hidden behind your back, then you can argue and say, I didn't know they were pedophiles. But by showing you, I've shown you I'm a pedophile. You still want to wear my t-shirt. So obviously what I'm doing is okay. And this karmic retribution model and the way that Satanists view the world, and when I say Satanists, I genuinely mean people who worship real Satan. The people who are in charge of these brands and in charge of the Western world and in charge of the Matrix genuinely worship Satan. When you understand the idea of karmic retribution, you can apply that to so many scenarios. They're doing this with everything. Karmic retribution isn't just about Balenciaga. Let's look at the recent scam of COVID. They made it very clear to you it was bullshit. They made it very clear that the virus isn't going to hurt you.
They made it clear that they didn't listen.
They
disobeyed the mask laws.
Yeah, they made it very clear to you it was all stupid.
Stop. We can't spread disinformation and misinformation. And that's right. If you want to go, bare-chested, showing, revealing cleavage, Mr. Tate, just not sure you can really pull it off. Right? Take it from a professional. Get back to Richard Spencer here.
I think that, first off, all of this can be explained through existing dynamics. Fuentes, he has some silly infatuation with Kanye and this Christian nationalism stuff. He's also a white nationalist or whatever. I mean, this is kind of typical. I can kind of see him doing this, easily be explained. And as I said, I do think he's acting in good faith, whatever we want to say about it. Milo isn't. I mean, this is what I would suggest, is that Milo has long been a kind of infant, you could say, of Rebecca Mercer and the Mercer family. The Mercer family is already on board with DeSantis. The Mercers were not on board with Trump. And Robert Mercer's a famous guy. He's a quant, hedge fund manager, billionaire donor to Republican causes. They were not on board with Trump at the beginning. They were on board with Cruz and other people. They got on board with Trump when the whole conservative establishment got on board in 2016, when they felt like there was nothing they could do. They would prefer someone like DeSantis. DeSantis speaks their language. Yes, Trump has been kind of a culture war fanatic, but Trump has these nationalist instincts that kind of come out. I mean, in a book, he supported national health care. He'll claim that, he wants to tax all these corporations and things like that. No, he didn't do any of this. I'm well aware of this. His administration was just a typical Republican administration. I don't think anything would have been that different if Jeb had been elected. Now, there definitely wouldn't have been a Muslim ban and all this talk of the wall, but in terms of the policies that were successful, I don't think it would have been that.
So later on in this show, Richard Spencer criticizes people who don't get a lot of views or don't have a big following. They're irrelevant. We should dismiss them. He also criticizes those who get a big audience because they're just pandering. So if you have a big audience, you're just a panderer and a grifter. If you don't have a big audience, then you're just a loser. Like either way, Richard Spencer has an explanation for why you should be dismissed.
Different. I might even go as far to say that even Jeb might have suggested something like the RAISE Act, that is the immigration reform, but that's a little bit iffy. So they would rather have DeSantis than Trump, the billionaire Republican donor types. So why not use your man, Milo, promise him that he can once again, enter the public eye and be a sensation once again. And at the same time, really harm Trump's campaign. Because just the act of bringing Fuentes, Trump can claim, as he has done, that he didn't know who Fuentes is. And 80% chance, 90% chance that's true. But he still nevertheless had dinner with him. The whole full-on denial of David Duke in 2016, you can't do that again. And so this is harmful. Just the whole scene is harmful. And Kanye, he can be on the one hand harmful. On the other hand, he can actually sop up all of that kind of online Trump energy.
Okay, so how should an intellectual conduct himself? Here's an example.
He's a thief, and I don't want to talk to him. And I don't want his name to be mentioned. In academics, he's not academic. He is nothing. In academic world, we do not do ad hominem arguments. We do not debate.
No, this is
listen. The matter is debated Greek and it's closed. It is debated closed. It's closed in Chicago by.
So this is a debate, and here's Egyptologist Zahi Hawass by preparing for a debate with Graham Hancock at the age of the Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, right? And he storms out of this debate with Graham Hancock.
Exactly, I don't want to hear it. No, please, don't say this. Don't say this word for me. It's a shame on you, not on me. To have an open discussion, Dr. Murray, about all that. Don't talk to me. Please, go away from me. Shame on you. Why do you say something to me? Because why should be able to openly discuss.
So this took place in Egypt, 22nd of April, 2015, between famed Egyptologist Dr. Zahi Hawass, who was throwing the fit, and controversial alternative historian Graham Hancock. So as Hancock was focusing his slides prior to giving his opening presentation, before most of the audience had even entered the room, Dr. Hawass saw one slide that contained something that he did not like. And Dr. Hawass became furious, began to shout at Hancock and Hancock's wife, Santha. She's wearing the white dress in this video. He demands that Hancock censor his talk. And here we go.
I don't know this man did bad things. I don't know what he did. This man, and I am going to call. I want to let this man not to enter this country at all. Because he's a cop. It's not my own business. Really, we should be able to have. Please, I don't want to hurt you. Please, let me just talk.
He should meet Sam Harris. They'd have a lot in common.
So basically, it's
why someone talk about a killing of someone else? Why? Why is talking about a killing that has been closed? Why?
Yeah, come on, guys. Why are you talking about theories that have been closed? Why do you have to open up these series again? Why, guys?
The theory is not closed. It is closed. No, it's not everywhere. And I don't know why we talk about it. It's not. It's his fucking thing. Why do you talk about it? You have to present your own theory, not to present the theory.
It is not closed, sir.
Okay, I closed it.
And I am
all the experts who want to close it.
I am presenting my own theory.
Okay, I'm not going to attend this.
I have written books with Mr. Bobby.
I'm not going to attend this.
Even before a word is exchanged, one image, and Mr. Hawass leaves the room.
Shame.
Okay, let's get back to a little Richard Spencer analysis here.
There can be some weird anti-Trump movement with Kanye in which all the online right goes with Kanye because he's the Christian nationalist. He's the full-on. We've moved past.
Okay, this is absolutely absurd to think that any sizable number of people is going to go with Kanye, that Kanye West is going to seize the energy and enthusiasm and passion and devotion of Christian nationalism, that Christians are going to side with Kanye West as opposed to Donald Trump. I don't think so. That's absurd.
The, in many ways, remarkably secular campaign that Trump ran in 2015 and the first half of 2016. Before he started talking about abortion and judges in summer of 2016. He never talked about any of that stuff. He never mentioned gay marriage. He never mentioned any of it. If anything, I mean, he was photographed with a gay flag, a rainbow flag. If anything, he would probably be more inclined to say something like, you know, we can't trust these Muslims because they abuse gays and women or something like that. He would take that kind of almost neocon line, if anything. And so you want to create a yay campaign that will, at the very least, damage Trump and could also sop up all that energy. So all these people who would support Trump are, you know, hot after Kanye, and they're demanding that we jail abortionists, and, you know, the 10 Commandments will the only constitution we need, or whatever they're going to say. And they have prayer tent revivals with Kanye in the lead, and they think of themselves as just so smart because, you know, they're playing the PC police for fools. You know, how can the woke mob call us racist when we're advancing and worshiping a black man? Ooh, how smart we are. So I can see this damaging Trump in two ways. Immediately, just the scandal of it, and then long term, if Kanye's campaign actually does have legs.
Okay, number one, Kanye's campaign is never going to have legs, and this is not going to damage Trump.
So I don't know. Can I prove this? No. Is this kind of connecting the dots or reading between the lines? Yes. But there does seem to be a possibility that this is happening. Because this isn't happening from like the Steve Bannon wing of the right. They're still Trump. They might even like DeSantis, but they're still pro-Trump. Carrie Lake, she did a thing I saw where she was just like, we need Trump in the White House. He's the only one who can do it. I'm there to fight for you. Hint, hint, I want to be your VP. Tulsi's probably angling at that. I can't imagine Tulsi becoming Kanye's VP. MTG is still loyal to Trump, et cetera, et cetera. There's still a Trump thing going on. Yeah, the donors have left. Yes, the RNC hates him, but that's where he was in 2015 anyway. He's done this before. But could you stop it by having something even crazier? And could you use a clear sociopathic liar that is Milo to kind of instigate this? And you don't even need to tell him the whole plan. Just kind of let him roll. He might even do something like this anyway. But you do need connections. I mean, as wily as Milo is, you still need connections to get in the room with a billionaire or a celebrity. It's not exactly easy. So this is just something that I would suggest. But I overall think, regardless of whether this theory of mine is correct or not, the truth, we have talent, we have ability, we have et cetera, we have the internet and so on. To really go like where we want to be, though, we're going to need to insinuate ourselves into the world of a billionaire. Like one of you guys has to be that guy.
Okay, so he's talking about followers of Apolloism here. All right, he really thinks that this new religion is going to change the world. But we need followers of Apolloism to get in the room with billionaires.
Guy on the yacht who no one knows how he got invited. Is that a task?
I'm fucking working on it, Richard. I told you, just give me time.
It's my life dream.
Yeah, my money's on Kurt. Kurt's going to do it.
Well, no, in a way.
No pressure, man. No pressure, man.
Well, I come from a competitive sports background, so I kind of like the pressure. But in a way, like, I was going to I don't mean to do a throwdown, but, can we just be fucking Jewish? Like, are there any other people on this call? Like in a way, like anybody that's earning over $100,000 a year and wants to like quadruple that in the next 12 months, like I've got myself on here. Fucking hit me up on, like, you can send me a letter, my PO box.
Yeah, if you make over $100,000 a year, you can hit up this fellow bloke who earns over $100,000 a year, and you Apollonians can get together and change the world.
Like, if you look at my name, like, please reach out to me and do not just go, oh, he's. As we're all painfully aware, we are about a century behind and several $1 trillion of wealth behind. So even if I struck 200 pounds of gold in my backyard today, we are still nowhere close. So please reach out. But I didn't mean to.
I would encourage people to do that. Especially if you're like an entrepreneur. And your business is something that could ultimately be scaled on a global scale.
Also, just to temper
you're
this,
selling something on the internet or something. What?
Just to temper this, though, we can't get in a situation where we have a lot of hurt feelings or something. Like, not every business venture works out. But I am generally enthusiastic. But I don't. Everyone should be very serious about this.
You're obligated as an Apollonian. You're obligated to be competent and to work hard and not be an idiot. Those are like sort of Apollonian criteria. So if we are going to have a guild, sort of Freemason like guild, trade guild, you have to hold up your weight and have to be someone who's worth employing or worth working with as a business partner. Obviously, right? It kind of goes without saying.
You want respectable people as Apollonians.
Yeah, no doubt. And we can't get into any like big dreams or just put my money, put your money here, we'll go far kind of thing. It does have to be it has to be contemplated seriously.
Yeah, but I think Kurt is just talking about developing business connections.
Oh yeah, well I'm 100% behind that, of course. Yeah. Actually, I've seen this a few times. I remember back in CMS, it was kind of interesting. I remember there was this guy, I've lost touch with him. And he was promoting, like I'm a whiz at business or something. And it kind of left, but the impression I got from him was that, and it's not the impression I get from Kurt, I get the exact opposite impression. In fact, the impression I got from him was that it was almost like you become rich, like I'm going to give you the secret of personal finance or something. And, to be brutally frank here, I'm not interested in that. Like, if I don't want someone to make $100 million and then we go visit them at their huge house or whatever. And, it's like, if I want to put money towards goals, and our goals are ideological. And, this is not about, anyone becoming a boomer. If you want to become the stereotype of the boomer, I've of course referred to. If you want to become a boomer, do that on your own time. We're here to win. So then the other thing that really got my goat was, are you ever aware of that Merlin Miller character? I think he's left the scene, and I think he might have died due to the fact that he like refused medicine because he's like such a crazed conspiracy theorist or something like that. But he had this thing called the America Party or something like might have even been American First Party, American Freedom Party, yeah. And he came to CMS at one point, and again, I had difficulty getting these guys to like pony up $20 or something. There were just these really tight characters. They had no vision. And he said, I want to create a movie about, what was he doing? He had done one movie called Jericho, which I think I saw clips of it. It was really terrible. He wanted to create some like white nationalist movie about someone discovering the secrets of USS Liberty or something. It was going to be like a Da Vinci Code movie about discovering the secret, it's the Jews was kind of the big final scene or something. And I was just like, eek, that sounds really bad. But all of these people went all into it. And I think a lot of them like threw in hundreds of thousands of dollars or something to a movie that, needless to say, was never made. And needless to say, is probably better having never been made.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be a 5-minute movie. He opens up his computer and goes to Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow, what a movie. What a journey that was.
Oh my God. The truth needs to get out. There's still some honest reporters out there. They need to know about this.
Or it's just like a father and like his son is like, Dad, the Jews, man, it's the Jews. He's like, no.
No, it's not.
And finally toward the end of the film,
his father's watching Fox
right,
News,
son.
and his like teenage son is on 4chan, like, dude, the Jays did this. What? Oh. But anyway, yeah, no, it has to be done seriously.
What does UNZ mean?
But it has to all be done seriously, and I think ruthlessly. It has to be, it's not. it's about building a cause and dedicating everything to that. Again, I'm totally in favor of everyone being successful and happy and healthy and having kids and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely, if we're going to do this, this is to be brutal here. This is how the Jews operate.
Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, I think it's we'll get there. It's in a good place. I think next year it's going to be a really good year in a lot of ways. It'll be very interesting. I mean, some things could, who knows? I mean, Twitter could get shut off. The Jews could turn off Twitter. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But I think that regardless, things are. I think a lot of interesting and good things will be happening next year.
Yeah, 2023 will be the greatest year ever for Apollonians.
Despite the machinations of whoever, I think there's a lot of good things that will happen. I mean, this book will be done, which is great, and then I have some other projects that I'm finishing up as well. So they've just been kind of long in the.
Mark Brahmin's book is coming out 2023. It's going to be unbelievable for Apollonians.
But there'll be a lot to discuss, I think.
Yeah, I think also there's going to be a hankering for a new vision, and among the people we want. I am confident about that. I don't think I'm just being wide-eyed or something. It's just like all of this, but on some level, a lot of this stuff needs to fail. Like the car needs to break down before we can be like, guys, like, get out of that fucking car. It's on the side of the road. It's not going to go. Like, stop pushing it. It has no gasoline in the tank. Like, jump in this Lamborghini we have. Like, we there just has to be it.
Yeah, remember, the Lamborghini is Apolloism.
All of that, like the kind of
and that broken down car that Richard has so much contempt for. That's Christianity. That's Judaism. That's nationalism. Like Richard Spencer has absolute contempt for nationalism. It's conservatism. It's free market economics. These are all broken down cars. And Richard Spencer saying, get out of these broken down cars. Come jump in my Lamborghini, which is the metaphor for Apolloism.
Goofball nationalism just kind of has to be on the side.
Yeah, just leave that nationalism behind, leave conservatism behind, leave Christianity behind. Come jump in my Lamborghini and let's be Apollonians.
The highway, 4 flat tires, basically.
Yeah. No, I'm optimistic ultimately.
I can't help taking that personally. Like, I think that was a shot at my broken down Datsun, right, from Apricot Sky. I'm sorry. I just can't help taking this personally. I think he was taking a shot, man. What was it, 1974 Datsun? There it is, my 1974 Datsun station wagon in this unreleased classic work of cinema, which had such a profound effect on Martin Scorsese. You should see Scorsese's work before and after seeing Apricot Sky, like Spielberg's work before and after Apricot Sky, Paul Thomas Anderson's work before and after Apricot Sky. Greg Dark's work, before and after Apricot Sky. John Staliano's work, before and after Apricot Sky. Just night and day.
But I just because I think that there are people out there, more people out there like us than we're aware of, and I think that every like sort of one person that we get who's an Apollonian, it's like the equivalent of like, you know, I don't want to diss TRS. It's equivalent of some X number of multiple of TRS, but it's the equivalent of like 10,000 groypers, right? The one Apollonian is the equivalent of like 10,000 groypers. You know what I mean? So if you gave an Apollonian a sword,
Okay, discuss. Is one Apollonian worth 10,000 groypers, or 10,000 members of the TRS book club?
Thermopylae or whatever, right? He would end up killing 10,000 groypers. so yeah, it's about quality, right? And I think Apollonians, it's about quality when we compare ourselves to TRS, but it's certainly, of course, to the groypers, right? I think that and I think that we'll start next year. I think we'll start to make some real inroads, and I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just on the ratio, I have been cutting in preparation for January, and I think Mike Enoch is roughly about 3 times my weight now. It's just been that successful.
How have you been cutting?
A month or so.
Well, how have you been doing it exactly? Just reducing calories or just working out? What exactly is your program? Okay.
Well, I find it very easy to put on weight, because I'm about 6'4", so I find it very easy to put on weight.
Yeah.
Especially coming from like a competitive playing background, it's always been so easy to eat too much. So I've just been upping workouts, counting calories, and all the rest of it, and just had a big picture of Mike on my wall to warn me against the evil.
Population.
I guess he did. I thought for some reason I thought that he had lost weight, but then I looked at.
So Appalachian says Trump gave Nick Fuentes a mop and a broom. He only had his last day and thought he was janitorial. Stop. I gave him some McDonald's. Should have given him Taco Bell.
One of his recent
God
things.
forbid. God forbid.
Pretty.
He found it.
Those guys always will. You know, the guy who buys a gym membership for a month, and you know, you see that all the time, particularly in January of years. It's a New Year's resolution. Yeah. It's not. You got to live it. Like you got to want to. You know, like I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I'm probably not at the level of Kurt, and I am very active. I ski and hike and bike around, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But you know, it's like the whole lifestyle. You know, you gotta want it. You gotta want to be active. You care about eating healthy food, and you gotta want to go to the gym. And you know, it's not just something like some little, you know, hack that you do, a life hack for a month. That's all meaningless stuff.
What is the weather in Las Vegas in January conducive to some type of Top Gun recreation scene? That is what I had in mind.
Wow, if we're gonna do that, I'm gonna do like a serious cut. I might just starve myself for a week to get into it. Tom Cruise 1984, or Val Kilmer 1985 shape.
Yeah.
Hey, were you guys watching the Socceroos and their magnificent 1-0 victory over Tunisia Saturday night, my time? And how about America drawing with England? Not just drawing with England. America was clearly the better soccer team. They outplayed England. Just incredible things going on in the World Cup. I mean, Japan pulled off an upset. Saudi Arabia pulled off an upset.
They're going to pull me up because I'm going to have so much baby oil in my luggage.
What's your plan? Yeah, no, it's good. It's a little bit. It can be. I've actually been in Vegas in February. It's a little bit cooler, kind of nice. I remember there's a pool evening. There's definitely some pools we can hit. I'm going to focus on this. Kurt's inspiring me. I'm going to make this a vendor to end all vendors.
Oh yeah, do it.
Yeah.
The last one was great. That was a fun time.
Yeah,
it was just a shame that one. It was just a shame that Max is 21 now, so we should run into that problem again.
Oh yeah, we had some issues, but we'll plan it. We kind of ended up a little too kind of like late night, wandering around strip clubs. We're going to get a master plan.
Yeah, there's. I guess we were in Dallas last night.
Yeah,
the strip clubs are rough in Dallas. I didn't realize they would be so bad, but I'm sure there's good ones. There must be good ones, but we ended up at one that was like, you know, it was like Tartarus, the underworld. It was like almost all black. You know, it was right.
Apollonianism in action.
You pay to leave. You don't pay to get in. You pay to leave.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah. I mean, not only was it degenerate, like most of the women were not even appealing because there were these giant black mamas. Nightmare.
No, we won't be doing that. I actually was going to get some cabaret tickets. They have some kind of funny maybe funny is not the right word. They have some interesting burlesque shows and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that kind of stuff is all with the laughs. We're not a prudish society. We're many things, but not that.
Oh, Richard,
hey, anyway,
forget.
Yeah, I'm going to go check on my kids again, but why don't you do this and then we might want to put a bookmark in those Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But go ahead. First.
Oh, it was just quick. Are you jigging around with the Unconscious Cinema podcast on the website? Because I haven't been able to get them to play.
I'll get those back up. I was rejigging a lot of things. It's funny. I was paying too much for hosting, and so.
So regarding the payphone, all payphones in Australia are free. And they're not trash, they're not covered with graffiti, they're not smashed around. It's beautiful.
I'm kind of rejigging and putting stuff back on. You know, it's funny, while I was doing this, I listened to some of these alt-right politics. I don't know, I found them a bit embarrassing or something. I almost want to take them down. They were just too 2016, like the fash talk, and I don't know. I don't know if they're like...
Stuff that you and I did?
No, that stuff I actually like. No, it's more like the,
That's quality stuff, man. Quality stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I was even thinking we should just start redoing them because I think there's just so much good stuff there. But getting like a real tight, like Raiders of Lost Ark one and things like that. No, it's the stuff with like Greg Conti. There's some interesting points in there, and it's kind of funny, but I don't know. I kind of think it just seems like this like era that I want to leave behind.
I got a little aggressive Conti on Twitter. I probably was too aggressive because I generally like the guy. I mean, I basically have your position. I don't have anything against the guy, but he was like kind of like, because I think I had gotten a couple of like little skirmishes with like the TRS clan on Twitter. Nothing major. It was fine, but he like sort of chimed in to like show his like fealty to the TRS clan, but he was like going after me for some like sort of etymological point. Because
I remember that.
Yeah, and he didn't really even understand the point that I was making.
Yeah, my co-star is going to be playing Huma Aberdeen in the Hillary biopic. Yeah, that's pretty good.
And the point that I was making is actually kind of a more profound point that like...
This is Mark Brahmin here complaining about Greg Conti, who was formerly Richard Spencer's assistant.
The fact that Plato is giving an etymology to a name is meaningful. It's not, we don't know there's no way actually to really know what the etymology of Apollo is, but it was given etymologies by these philosophers and these mythographers in the ancient world. And those etymologies have significance because they're like basically giving the god an attribute, or they're giving the god a sort of sense. They're giving the name or word a sense, basically a definition, right? And they're not doing it arbitrarily. They're doing it intelligently. You know what I mean? But he was like trying to get me on some like little sort of technical etymological thing. But he wasn't.
That's typical Greg. It's myopic.
He wasn't. He
also had some weird.
He didn't really know what I was saying. You know what I mean?
No. I don't want to go back into it. I do feel like he's a lost cause. I feel like he has talent and stuff. He has these instincts to appeal to the herd, and he never wanted to like counter signal Andrew Anglin or all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so it's bad to appeal to the herd, and it's also bad if you don't appeal to the herd. So either way, from Richard's perspective, you're a loser. If you appeal to the herd, you got a large viewership, then that means that you're appealing to the herd and you're a loser. You don't appeal to the herd and you have a small viewership, then that also means you're a loser. Either way, Richard can dismiss you.
He thinks that he's got to appeal to them. And it's a really bad instinct. Not that you want to needlessly counter signal all the time, but you've got to move upwards and forwards. You're not them. They're anonymous trolls, So yeah, he does have talent. It does kind of bother me. I feel like he can contribute, but he needs.
I felt like I was too aggressive with him, but I felt like.
Don't worry about it. Fuck it. Don't worry about it. He's a lost cause.
All right. Well, it's not. I mean, I don't want to be. He might be a lost cause, but I don't think he's like a terrible person or anything like that. You know what I mean?
No, he's not a terrible person. But don't worry. It's not like restraint has ever been your forte on social media.
That's true.
I was about to say, Mark, you do shoot from the hip. It is a fun to the hole whenever I open up Twitter.
Yeah. Anyways, hopefully some people find it entertaining. It's not just like, oh man, Brahmin is cringe.
Well, sometimes when you're like attacking a guy with 20 followers, I'm just like, all right, just let it go.
Yeah, that's true. I get pissed off.
It's so easy.
It is like road rage.
Right, so if you got 20 followers or 70 followers, right, you can be dismissed. You got a lot of followers, you can also be dismissed because you're just appealing to the herd.
Yeah, it is.
No, but I think what it is just I don't like, for some reason, because I do feel like I'm a counterpuncher generally, right? I'm sure I've done it some people first or whatever. But generally, that's my policy, and I try to be like civil to people and not just like, not just attack people on Twitter. So I just find it completely offensive if someone's just like, yeah, shut up, asshole, and I'm just like, dude, you know what I mean? Anyways,
yeah. No, there are some people who really get under my skin, and I have to like put the phone down to not just rail against them. Just yeah. But that's what they're trying to do. But anyway, gents, I'm going to put a bookmark in it.
Okay, so let's wash our neshamas in the well springs of Torah. Let's get a little bit here from Dr. Mark B. Shapiro, The Rise of Reform and the Rabbinic Response.
Erev Tov, everybody.
Okay, here we go.
Decision making. You cannot appreciate Orthodox psak without knowing that there's something that's not Orthodox that's moving in many directions. So,
I say psak means rulings on Jewish law.
Well, we'll get back to all this. Now, there's an important book on Reform Judaism. There's a few books on it, but here's an important book for you to know about. Michael Myers' Response to Modernity: A History of the Reform Movement in Judaism from 1995. It's
not an easy read, by the way.
Basically the classic work on reform. And right at the beginning of it, he says that the term Reform Judaism is really not the best term. Why does he say it's not the best term? Because he says it limits and obscures the subject. Why? Because not all the people, as we will see, who advocated reforms regarded their position as that of Reform Judaism. In fact, in the first generation, none of them did. Today, you find all sorts of reforms. If a rabbi argues that today no one's paying attention, so we're not going to say the Yitzhak anymore, which happened, by the way, a lot of shuls now we're not saying it because during COVID, when they weren't meeting, of course, there wasn't a minyan. When they came back, they wanted davening to be short, so they cut out V'yitzhak. Are they reformers? They're engaged in reform, but it's not reformers. Shamshon Raphael Hirsch engaged in many reforms that he thought were important, but this is not Reform Judaism. So that's one of the problems with the term. And also, it's in retrospect that we use the term. We're going to identify people and say, well, this person's a reformer. But at the time, there wasn't necessarily that. And also, the term reform encompasses a wide range of things. So, for instance, in Germany, you have radical reformers. In England, there's less radical. In Hungary, you have both radical and not so radical. Originally, many of the reformers, and now I'm not just talking about the early generation here, I'm talking about the great ones, Geiger, etc., they believed that these reforms were so natural and so obvious, they would be accepted by all Jews. And in some ways, they were correct. For example, preaching in the vernacular. As we'll see, this was a big problem, preaching in the vernacular. And except for the Hasidim, everyone basically has drushas in the vernacular, including in the Litvisha world. So they thought that all of their reforms would be accepted.
So in the Jewish tradition, there weren't sermons, right? Sermons really were developed by the Protestants. Then the Catholics began to imitate the Protestants and introduce sermons. And then the Jews, beginning with the Reformed Jews, started introducing sermons into Sabbath morning services. And now virtually all Jewish synagogues have sermons on Saturday morning.
By the vast majority of Jews, the ones who would oppose it, the rabbis and the Jews, would be a small group who would soon be pushed out of the way, and they would have small followings that would, Nebuch type of groups that you can look at it and say, well, these are vestiges of the past, and the young people would clearly move away from these old-fashioned types, and insignificant groupings would survive. It didn't work out that way. Although reform is enormously successful, the new traditionalism, which we're going to call orthodoxy, also was able to stabilize itself with a strong contingent. And after the early religious battles that we're going to see, it became clear that reform would not be the Jewish community, it would be part of the Jewish community, and only then can we speak about a movement. In some areas, reform will be the dominant part of Judaism in Europe. In other areas, it will be a minority. Even in a place like Germany, although reform would conquer the major cities, and also in Hungary, in the small towns, there were plenty of places where traditional Judaism continued and was quite powerful. So we're going to be looking, as I said, at early figures who today are regarded as harbingers of reform, but did not regard themselves as a movement, and indeed there was no such movement. Now, reform movement, as you chart it, I don't think we're going to do this. Mr. Ray Kelman says to move forward. I'm interested right now in looking at the first generation. I don't know how many weeks that's going to go, but it's a lot of weeks because we're going to look at some of these texts that most people never look at. But if we move into the second, third, and fourth generation, you'll see it's dynamic with changing ideas. In fact, Michael Meyer writes that the only idea there at the beginning and continuous is that of universalist messianism. Although, as we'll see, even that's not there from the beginning, assuming that what I identify as the beginning of reform is the beginning. The whole idea, the movement goes through such changes that what was basic in earlier years, that the Jews were not a people. They're only a religion. Jews of the Mosaic persuasion, Germans of the Mosaic persuasion, that too is jettisoned. Certainly after World War II, it's jettisoned, and reform becomes a Zionist movement as well. So when do we date the reform movement? This is going to be a problematic question in and of itself, because we are going to see examples of reform, real reform, even before there's a movement. Now, Moses of Dessau, he's often regarded in Orthodox literature as a reformer. In fact, maybe even the first reformers.
So, yeah, for Reform Judaism, Friday night is the big service.
Why? Because he wanted educational and cultural reform, but he did not speak of religious reform with one exception. We will examine, probably not today, next class, Moses Mendelssohn. In one area, he actually did advocate reform, but he called it halachic reform.
it's true that Mendelssohn's followers were, if they were not, well, some were secularists, others became apostates, and others were reformers. But Mendelssohn himself, we will get back to this, had no conception of religious progress, in the sense that we'll see that the reformers had. In fact, a major difference between Mendelssohn and the reformers is that Mendelssohn identifies Judaism with a religion of reason, and what's particular to Judaism is the halakha, Jewish observances. Whereas so notice for Mendelssohn, Judaism in terms of philosophy has nothing to teach the world because philosophical truth is universal. On the contrary, the reformers had it just the reverse. For them, there's no significance to Jewish observance, to halakha, to mitzvot and the Torah, which Mendelssohn thought were obligatory, and rather Judaism did have truths to teach the world.
So what's going on in China? We've got these protests against COVID, which are basically unprecedented. They're welding people into their homes. This is an apartment building in Chengdu, China. The government is welding the entrance door to the apartment building to enforce the lockdown. You do not have enough food at home, you'll starve. Some people are committing suicide, jumping out of their windows. Wow, just imagine the government welding you into your home. And this sort of incredible protests, videos coming out of China. Let's show some of these protest videos. Election Wiz has a good roundup here. So what do we got? These are protesters in Toronto outside of the Chinese consulate. Right, they're chanting, Chinese people resist liberty or die, down with the CCP. Right, students at Chinese university using creative ways to protest. Wave magic wand, suddenly anti-lockdown protesters are no longer COVID deniers or conspiracy theorists when they occur in China, as Michael Tracy. Right, so this is Wuhan tonight. Enough is enough with Chinese Communist Party suppression. Historic evening in Beijing, people chanting, we want to eat, we want to work, we want to pay rent, we want to travel, we want to see Avatar in the cinema, to go sing karaoke, to go clubbing. Felician says, who can believe any video coming out of China? We saw people dropping dead of COVID, etc. Who knows what has been staged? Well, there's no way the Chinese Communist Party would be staging protests against the Chinese Communist Party. Right, here's